Hello.
Arden. Let's play the theme song real quick. We haven't done the theme song in a while. Oops, it's not linked up. Hold the fucking phone, chat. Everything broke when I switched setups. Here we go. Theme song.
Tune in most days of the week, and he'll be there schooling some ignorant creep, or catch him on a gaming whim.
Hell yeah.
This ain't a game to him. You could be a Bradley's baddie too. You could be a Bradley's baddie too. So join Jovan and get your critical cap on. 'Cause there's a Bradley's baddie inside of me and you.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to stream. It is Friday, May 16th, 12:09 p.m. Welcome in, chat. Welcome, Arden, everybody. Welcome, Arden.
Hello.
Arden, who became one of my best friends, is here to debate some transphobes with me. Arden, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. I'm hyped up. I've got a mostly full energy drink. I'm ready to fucking smack down. Let's go.
We're going to can you ask Arden how her reptiles are if I have to?
They're great. There's a new enclosure here from the last time Jovan was on with me. These are Acanthosaura lepidogastr, the dwarf mountain horn dragons. They're these tiny little lizards. They're like that long. They're super cute. Yeah, they're great.
Also, chat, just really quickly, just so you know, anytime you tip $5 or more this stream, this is gonna happen. Just so you're aware. I'll show you what it is now. Just so you're aware, if you tip over $5, this is gonna happen. This is little Kami. I really like the name Kami, so I'm gonna call him Kami. He's just on a puppy sleepover. We're still seeing if we mesh. If we end up meshing, I'm gonna keep him. If we end up not meshing, I'm not gonna keep him.
Mm-hmm.
But right now, we seem to be meshing. He sleeps right next to my bed, and he cries every time I leave the room. So.
Oh,
Everything
he loves you.
Bring Kami up onto this screen, just so you're all aware. Now, I do want to go over some of the crazy shit that's happening right now because I feel like we just have to talk about the couple of bullshit things. Oh my god, they're literally using a woman as an incubator.
Oh my god,
it is the most fucking dystopian shit I've ever seen.
Yeah. Yeah,
I don't.
Sorry.
Go ahead, Arden.
No, I was just gonna say I've been I watched like the first half of the season of Handmaid's Tale when it came out, but I hadn't watched the whole thing. And I recently, because the last season's coming up, was like, oh, I should pick it up. And I just got to the episode where they do literally exactly this. And I'm like, this is like years into their dystopian society where women have no rights that they do this. We're doing it now. So awful.
It's actually the craziest shit I've ever seen. Let me pull it up, chat, so that way we can all see. But it's hi. Just putting that there. Okay, hold on, chat. I just want to make up. That's not what I want. Up. Hold on. Up. Just need to adjust some things because computer work. Please. Okay, there we are. A little small on screen, but I'll fix that as well. But yeah, we're literally using a woman as a fucking incubator. It's the craziest shit. It's shit that you see on episodes of like Grey's Anatomy, except this isn't Grey's fucking Anatomy.
Yep. Really fucking sick.
Alt F4, you guys are fucking wild. I don't know. I saw the story and I couldn't believe my eyes. She's brain dead.
Yeah.
And instead of going, I don't know, maybe don't do that. Maybe we let a brain dead person, not as. Maybe we don't use her as an incubator. I don't know. It's just a thought. Yo, thanks for the sub. Ona Morgan, thank you for the sub. We made the decision for it. Let's
Did you see those
Let's-
Owen Morgan? Hey,
Ona
Owen.
Morgan.
Oh, okay. Sorry, different person. I was like, oh, is that my buddy? That's so cool. Not my
I'm looking
buddy.
for
Sorry.
reviews with a video so we can just okay, here we go. Just so we can watch the video. Continue without supporting ABC. You don't need my support. Check on your Jewish homies. Kanye be Kanye. Yo,
Oh my
he
god.
put out a song called Heil Hitler.
I don't even.
That's bad shit, bro.
We had somebody call in to try to defend that the other night. That they were like, "Well, Eminem has songs that are still up on Twitter, on Spotify, and they say awful things about people, and
taken down.
Not even this close to the same thing."
Yeah, I think the songs Eminem posts about like wanting to unalive his ex. Maybe we don't leave those songs on the internet.
Adriana Smith was about 9
let me
weeks
know if everybody
pregnant
can
when she
hear
started
this.
having bad headaches in
No, you definitely
February.
Enough to know that something was wrong.
April Newkirk says her daughter went to Northside Hospital for help.
They gave her some medication, but they didn't do
Yeah.
any tests. Didn't do any CT scans. If they did, they would have caught it.
The next morning, Adriana's boyfriend noticed something was terribly wrong.
She was gasping for air in her sleep, gargling. More than likely, it was blood. She was taken to Emory, Decatur, and then she was transferred here.
To Emory University Hospital, where Adriana worked as an RN. Unfortunately, there was nothing doctors could do.
They did a CT scan and she had blood clots all in her head. So they had asked me if they could do a procedure to relieve them, and I said yes. And then they called me back and they said that they couldn't do it.
Doctors declared Adriana brain dead.
So I feel as if somebody dropped the ball at the hospitals, and her boyfriend asked, please keep her. If she was kept at the hospital, we wouldn't be here.
Because of Georgia's heartbeat bill, which bans abortions after a fetal heartbeat is detected, her family says they weren't given any say in what happens next.
It's torture for me.
This is actually
I come here and I see my daughter breathing by the ventilator. She's not there. And I'm touching her. And she has a son who I bring to see her.
Now, 21 weeks pregnant, her baby's health uncertain.
She's pregnant.
This is partially why in my abortion debates, when everybody's like, so you think at 21 weeks, like we give precedent to the fetus, and I'm like, yeah, unless the person who's pregnant still doesn't want to. But this is it's just fucking stupid.
Yeah,
It's
I
just-
mean,
I hate this.
I'm under the impression that they're going to be saddling the family with the bill. Like, it'd be one thing if the state was like, I mean, it'd be still fucked up, don't get me wrong, but it'd be one thing if the state was like, oh, we'll take on all the expenses, but you're also going to saddle the family with the bill that they're like explicitly saying, stop keeping our daughter alive. We don't want this to happen. Just so wildly unethical on so many levels. Like,
the crazy part, I wish this was the craziest thing that's happening in the news cycle right now. I really do. I wish this was the worst of it. But it's not. We're literally about to lose our constitutional right to anything, by the way, in like, when is the Supreme Court expected to make their decision on the injunctions? I think today or tomorrow. We're so fucked.
Yeah.
We're so fucked. We're so fucked, guys.
It's really scary. And I'm in Texas. Yeehaw, motherfucker. Oh, you're in Florida. That's not much better. It's pretty much the same.
I decided to go to Florida. Like a goon. Remember, chat, just a reminder, we have a tip goal today, live tip goal. Also a reminder, any donation over $5 does turn on the puppy cam. So just keep that in mind, chat. If you want to see dog, you know how to see dog.
Oh boy.
Anyway, what are Arden's pronouns? Arden, you want to tell everybody your pronouns?
Yeah, my pronouns are she, her. Thank you for asking.
Let me put it.
Ooh.
I haven't. What? Wait, what?
Bones have decided.
I haven't even gotten to the debate portion of the stream yet.
Okay.
Yo.
This is great.
Okay, let's just see what this is. Hello? 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 Oh, they can't hear me. Hold on. Hello?
Hello.
Hi, who's this?
Hi, my name is Poppy, and is this Jovan?
It is. It is. Sorry, I got confused there. We weren't at the debate portion of the stream yet. Were you calling in to debate?
No, I wasn't actually. I am a trans woman down here in Texas, and I honestly, I just wanted to thank you for everything that you do to support trans rights and the rights of people in general. I think it's very noble of you to do this
Oh,
to help so many
well, thank
people.
you.
Just wanted to thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I hope you have a great stream and bless you.
Thanks. You have a good rest of your day.
You too.
I was scared. I was like, wait, what? All right. Well, with that said, let's get ready to hop on the YouTube. I did not put both of us
Okay,
aside. Let me do that.
I'm ready. I've stretched.
I'm ready. Promotion. I'm ready. Depression. SpongeBob, anybody? Just me?
Yes, yes. I love SpongeBob references because Matt doesn't get them. Too old to get them. They're so funny.
I still think, and I'm gonna go to my grave, that the Circle of Life defense should have won. That's all I'm saying. I should have won that one.
It was
That's
pretty
all
good.
I'm saying.
I do think Morticia hijacked it by offering feet. I mean,
I could offer feet too, but I don't know that I'm willing to sink that low for a win.
you see, you can offer feet, but you didn't. That's the thing, right? Morticia just went full on, straight in. I'll give you feet. Of course, she didn't, but
Well, if you guys want to see the dog, I told you how to do it. Okay, it's right on the screen. If you want to see the dog, you see how to get dog. Okay, it's right there on the
Hey,
screen.
dog.
Just trying to make it a bit more. Oh, that's how I can do it. Okay. 1 second, chat.
See, this is also fun because I don't have any control over the calls, so I'm just along for the ride.
I'm just trying to get this set up properly. I'll move all this here. No, I'll put it here. There we go. There we go. Okay, and then I'll do this and this and this. Then we'll go to the YouTube, and then we'll do this. And we'll save that. And then that. Yes. Okay, and then we'll go here.
Yes. Sorry.
So what's today? The 16th. But we're not doing 1v1s today. So oh, and look, and I can tag your YouTube page.
Oh my god.
W. If you guys wanted a tip for the puppy cam, Cash App, Venmo, or you could do it PayPal, which is in my about section here. Remember, every tip over $5 gets you puppy cam. I gave 500 bits to see the dog. Okay, you can have 20 seconds of dog for 500 bits. He's asleep right now. Oh, and Jax sent a $5 tip, so we'll put it up there for Jax. He's currently right now a sleepy boy. He went for a walk earlier today.
Aw. Him's little legs are just tired.
All right, let's go live on YouTube. 3, 2, 1, and there we go. By the way, if anybody remembers the dude that called me the N-word 2 streams ago, I may not have found his information.
Oh my god. What's wrong with people?
Me?
Can't you just be normal?
All right. You didn't name him Carl Barks? No, I named him Kami. I like Kami better as a dog name. Lil Kami.
It's pretty good.
Yeah, I think it's the way to go. Okay. Good morning, YouTube. Welcome in, everybody. Welcome in. Say hello to my guest today. Say hello to Arden. We are doing a
Hello.
fully trans board today. The topics for today are trans women are women, and vice versa, trans men are men. Trans kids deserve gender affirming care. Teach LGBTQIA plus topics in schools. Those are our topics for today. If you disagree with any of those topics, feel free to call in. The number is on the board, but we'll give people time to show up.
Yep.
They usually like to argue with me about trans women because they have nothing better to do with their lives.
Oh my god, we had somebody totally crash out on the stream yesterday. They were the kind of person who uses TRA, like the gender critical way of referring to trans activists. And we were like, hey, just to let you know, like, that term's not going to be received well. Like, it's kind of derogatory and only used in this very specific context. And he was like, I don't believe that. I don't care. You're gaslighting me.
That's crazy.
Gaslighting. People love that term. Gaslighting.
How much do folks have to tip to see a snake?
Oh my
That's
god.
up to our list. What number should we put on a snake cam?
I mean, if you, I can go grab a snake and then every like what 10, we'll say 10. You have 5 for the puppy cam. We'll give you 10.
$5 for the dog, $10 for the snake.
Okay.
So if you tip $5, you get $5 or more, you get a dog cam. $10 or more, you get a dog and a snake. So
I'll grab the snake so I can show her off easily. I don't have to fish her out every time because it's gonna take me a minute. She's probably buried in her log.
Okay? Well, we're good. You go ahead. YouTube, here's the dog cam, by the way, which will show up every 10 every $5 tip or dono. You'll get a dog cam. Oh, don't worry, they'll get in here. Conservatives come into this chat all the time.
You're
And the
one
thing that they
freebie.
typically want to talk about is trans stuff.
That's a one freebie, so they know what they're getting.
You give them a little taste.
My little baby. Now I gotta try not to be ADHD and just pull her up in the middle. Save it for the money.
The money shot. All right, let me put. We're just here chilling, guys. So feel free to ask questions. If you'd like. Me and Arden are just here chilling. So if you want to ask questions, you can ask questions. If you want to debate and you think you can handle the heat,
Hell yeah.
hop into the kitchen. All right, let's see if this works. Oh, okay, that didn't work. That did not do what I wanted it to. Where's the other? Not YouTube. Where's my other OBS? Here it is. I want a source visibility. And I want to toggle. Okay. Guys, I'm just going through stuff in my OBS so that
It's
things
great.
work.
So I'm
feel
loving not
free to-
having to be in charge. This is awesome.
Oh yeah. See if this works now. Okay, and then push that. Okay, it's bringing up the frame, but it's not bringing up the camera. Is that because it can't bring up? Oh, that would be why. Let's turn these both off. And now press it. Oh, wait. Nope. We have to do this. Then we do that. Then we do that. Boom. Got it. Nailed it. I'm a fucking genius.
You'll have to tell me when we hit a snake cam donation. I don't know if I can see on your end.
I'll let everybody know. It depends on if they send the donos. We are $5 into our daily tip goal. So if you guys want to dono, feel free. Let's see what we got here. How's the YouTube? How's the actually cracked out? Still waiting for that Warrior Z debate. That Warrior Z guy can suck my dick. I don't give a fuck. Damn, we got nothing but friendlies in the YouTube chat, guys. Nothing but friendlies.
Oh boy.
Question, I guess. I've been getting a lot of expedited removal overrides the 5th and 14th Amendment from MAGA. Does anyone have a good argument? It doesn't. They're just stupid. It literally doesn't. An executive order can't override the Constitution. Well, hold on. Let me rephrase this. It's not supposed to, but we'll see what happens after this next Supreme Court decision.
Yeah.
Oh, $10 super chat from Christians Against. What was that? What was the full name? I can't read the full name. Christians Against something. Christians Against D. What is it? Dinosaurs. That's fucking hilarious. That's such a good name. Love to Jovan and Arden. All right, well, here's a dog cam for your super chat. Christians Against Dinosaurs is a fucking funny name.
Trying to get all my chat windows up. There's a multi-chat thing on Stream Elements, but it's not working. It's only giving me Twitch, so I'm like kind of annoyed.
As a Christian man, trans people aren't as big an issue for me than Sharia law and Muslims trying to I'm not touching that with a 20-foot pole. Listen, I say all the time, I have no problems talking shit about Christians. I don't really touch other religions because I don't know them well enough, and it gets into a little xenophobia. So, teach sexuality in schools? Question mark. Get help. Who said anything about teaching sexuality in school? Weirdo. Get your mind out the gutter.
Boy, these are your troll YouTubers. That's great.
Oh, they're not trolls. They literally believe this shit. They're
sure, that's fair.
The bulk of YouTube chat is stupid people.
My apologies for assuming your dishonesty, chat.
Real.
Van Briggs in my chat. It's a ball python. Kind of snake it is.
Can't call it work, but would love to hear about deconstructing trans medical mistakes. I'm not trans med, but never know how to approach people who are. I mean, I just did it the other day. I think it's really weird to claim that you have to, like, first of all, it's pretty classist to claim that you have to, like, medically transition to be considered trans or a woman. Like, I think it's classist as fuck.
Yeah.
Poor people exist. Christians are safe to make fun of. Why not Muslims? Because Christians suck. And every Muslim I've met has been pretty chill.
You haven't met Daniel Hakikachu.
I don't know who that is.
He's this Muslim debater who is like just like a fundy Christian, you know, advocates for the absolute worst parts of Islam and will defend them and die on absolutely any hill, no matter how repulsive.
Someone said, damn, your mom should have aborted. I wish. Q1 Alliance chat, largely supportive Jovan chat. I can't argue enough to call in, so I'm going to say bullshit. Can we call in and ask trans advice? I guess, but it's just going to turn into one of like Arden streams on the line. We're trying to get some conservatives that disagree. Let's see who else is saying some weird shit. The West is directly responsible for Islamic fundamentalism. 8 with that. Low key 8 with that. Cat ears equals good head. I've been told I'm not bad. The State Department is changing gender markers on passports even for those who had SRS 30 years ago. Yep. Jovan, are you vegan? No, meat tastes great. So you agree that women are worse than men because that's what Muslims believe. That's what Christians believe too. It's like in the Bible, tons of places that women must be subservient to men. Rules for thee, not for me, I guess. By the way, love the collab between you two. Is this going to become a regular thing? That's up to Arden.
I love doing shows with Jovan. It's one of the things with like Takis where we made an agreement at the beginning to have on exclusively trans hosts, and I think that's important. Like, it's good to have trans people taking these topics, so I don't really want to change that. But I also like doing shows with Jovan, and like I know I would like to do some shows with like Forrest and stuff over on the line, talking about trans issues because he's great at that topic too. But it's just, there's not really space for it on Takis. So yeah, definitely down to do some more regular stuff. I want to be streaming more, doing this kind of thing too. So, it's a good, nice to have a co-pilot to kick it off with,
Someone said, "What is a woman?" Your mom.
True.
What breed is Kami? Kami is a hound / blue heeler mix.
What a baby. I had a beagle growing up. She was awful, but she was cute.
It says in the Bible, men and women were created equally. Where what? Please learn to spell if you're gonna. Does taste justify violence? Yeah, I've never claimed to be moral, so yeah, sure. I don't claim to be moral on this factor. Do I agree that veganism is probably correct? Yeah, probably. Yeah. Yeah. Veganism is probably the correct way to go. I'll go to hell for a burger though. Seems most are too scared to hop into the call and instead are asking around the chat. Typically. Man, now I'm thinking of how good a Forrest / Jovan show would be. I'm good with everybody.
Oh,
Hey, let's see what
shit.
we got. Hello, are you here to debate?
Yeah.
All right. Can I get your name, age, and pronouns, please?
Yeah, you can call me A. I'm 27 and I go by he, him.
A27E. Okay. A. What topic did you disagree with on the board?
I wouldn't say I specifically disagree with any of the topics, but I guess I kind of I wanted to clarify a stance that you may or may not have regarding I think it was the first topic. I'm actually not at my screen right now, but it was the one about trans women are women.
Okay, what about it?
So, I guess the question is for relating to sports, like trans women competing in male sports. Do you think that there should be a limit as to I don't know, like period after an individual transitions? Should they have a time limit before they're allowed to compete in male sports?
Arden, you want to take that one?
I mean, I think, are you saying like trans women in female sports? You're saying male sports. Because like, why would they need a time limit to compete in male sports if you have the worldview that trans women are males, right? So was it just a misspeak?
Oh, you know what? Sorry. Yeah. You're totally right.
Okay.
I misspoke. I meant trans males in male sports. No. Let me back up. Hold on. Trans women in female sports.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I got you. No, it's okay. I just want to make sure. So already a lot of sports leagues and regulations have these kinds of regulations where it's not about the amount of time. It's actually about like the nanomoles of testosterone in your blood per like deciliter or something, some measurement like that. I'm not sure exactly what it is. I'm fine with whatever regulations as long as they're like evidence-based and they're applied evenly across the board. My objection to bans is only when it is a blanket ban across the board, right? Like, if we're saying trans women can't compete in sports, period, that's what I'm opposed to. But if there's some regulation that's like, oh, you have to have, this amount of like, again, like testosterone nanomoles per deciliter in your blood, and that's applied to everyone, then I have a hard time objecting to that because that seems like that's fair to everyone. I do think there's a different, more like broadly feminist problem with the fact that we put a ceiling over women and females in sports and that there's no ceiling over men. So men are able to have whatever genetic, birth anomaly that allows them to be extremely powerful in sports, and there's no removing them for that. But if a woman has some sort of genetic anomaly like higher testosterone, and we can remove trans people from this, right? There's people like Caster Semenya, that then they're removed from competition, despite the fact that by all meaningful purposes, they are a cis woman. So that's kind of where I land on that. I'm fine with fair regulations, but I don't love the idea that women have a ceiling on their performance and men don't.
Yeah, me personally, I just think everybody should compete against everybody. I don't give a shit.
Well, I think that's the reason why weight classes exist in a lot of sports, right? Because even if a woman was at the top of her game in the women's section, she probably still weighs less than a given man for like whatever the top the weight class is for women. So like she probably wouldn't be able to compete with the heavyweight man as a heavyweight woman still, right?
Here's the thing. Sports is about competition. I want to see the most competition possible. And if it is the case that I'm going to get that by watching like a trans woman compete against a cis woman, then that's what I want to watch. If it's the case that I'm going to get that watching a cis woman compete against a cis man, then that's the game I want to watch. I just don't know why. I've never understood why sports aren't like predominantly co-ed. Like when I went to high school, there were girls that played on our football team, right? Like it was completely fine. Sure, we could talk about like how that looks on like the super professional level, but like I don't really watch super professional sports anymore anyway. So like, I don't. Who cares?
Yeah.
In my opinion.
Yeah, I get you. I actually wanted to kind of key into something though, and that was regarding the actual identification itself, and having like a set limit for I think it was mentioned like testosterone. I think it's actually hypocritical to assert that there should be a limit on that, because if trans women are women, then it shouldn't matter what time period is between their transitioning and their like being allowed to compete in whatever sport. Because if they identify as a woman, then they're a woman. So I don't think there should be any limit, right?
So yeah, I mean, that's kind of what my original point was when I was saying, like, I don't like that there is a ceiling on women at all. Like, quite frankly, I think if a woman is trans, and I'm not convinced that actually does give them across the board some sort of athletic advantage. I think there are probably some individuals who underwent endogenous male puberty who may retain some kind of advantage, but I don't think that applies to everyone. I don't think you can say because trans women are assigned male that they have like identical to cis male starting levels in athletic performance across the board. But that's kind of what my point was about women having a ceiling on their performance and men not having a ceiling on their performance. And that's why I would like to see, like what Jovan was talking about, like a league that's maybe divided by like something a little bit more objective and removed from gender, where it's like weight classes or, testosterone things that applies to everyone always.
Just make everything skill based. Like
Yeah.
what we know the types of skills required for each sport, to the point where we measure those things. Like we literally will measure in baseball, we measure like it's stats. Like the stats in sports are telling us how good somebody is. Put the people who are the best against each other. Make separate leagues to have like a league, a B league, and a C league, like we have with football. You have arena football, you have like the NFL, then you have like the lower levels. You have the same with baseball. Just do that, and whoever can compete competes. I don't get what people like. What's the issue? There's not enough trans people to make a difference when it comes to the sports to begin with.
Yeah, I think the first thing that would happen if you did that was we would start seeing cis women competing against men in like typically men's leagues, which would be fucking awesome. And I would love to see them get credentials for being able to kick ass in like the general league. Obviously, like we could talk about like averages of like body, fat and muscle composition and all these things. And maybe they wouldn't initially like we wouldn't see a lot of women in those leagues, but I think we would start to see women in those leagues. And it would also, I think, combat like the cultural influences that affect performance in sport more positively if they were more open leagues.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I got a question. Do you think that cis women are justified if they believe that if they're at the top of their sport and a trans woman trans woman athlete comes in and takes their top spot, do you think cis women are justified in feeling like that spot has been stolen?
Not stolen. I mean, like, you can be butthurt, you just lost a medal, like, that sucks for anyone, right? But it's like, our this is the problem with a lot of the trans bans, like, it's only okay when trans people don't win. So what, are trans people just never supposed to win for all future? Are we just supposed to throw every competition that we have a chance at winning now? Because otherwise, cis women are gonna feel hurt and stolen by that? Like, I think we have to be careful about how we have these, like, sort of irrational hatred towards like a certain object of a person, like their gender or like, you know, used to be like their race, where it's like they're in like the same space as me. Uh I think all of those things are gonna be ultimately like just kind of you crashing out and being irrationally angry about something that's not relevant to what happened, you know? Trans people
Also,
are allowed to win and succeed.
I think if we saw, I've been pretty staunch about this. I think if we saw like a situation where every single trans athlete was always number one,
Yeah.
100% of the time, sure, maybe we have something to talk about like fairness, and that's why we'll talk typically about like competing after a certain level of HRT, certain like time frame of HRT has been done. But like this isn't happening. Trans women are dominating their sporting categories, and they're being beaten by cis women.
Yep.
Like I hate the argument to be centered around losses, but like trans women don't dominate their sporting categories. They always lose.
Yeah.
Just like cis women will always lose. There will always be someone better than you. Unless you're like Michael Jordan. There's typically always going to be someone better than you, cis or trans. So it's just like
every viral story about trans people winning sports, there, whenever you dig deeper, it's always like, oh, Leah Thomas broke records, except she like broke the record for one particular race at her school. She did not break any kind of like global or like a national record. A cis woman did that. Cis women beat her in other competitions. Or when you look at people like Fallon Fox, she lost to cis women all the time, but everyone talks about the one where she gave a very common injury in the sport that she has. Or there's the story going around where they're like, oh, this racer in the UK, this runner beat 6,000 women. What they don't tell you is that she came in like 6,000th place. So it's like, is this really what we're concerned about? Like, I think there are actual issues that women are facing in sports. And that has more to do with like pay disparity and like the support that they're getting from organizations. I don't think it has anything to do with trans women's participation.
Leah Thomas didn't even break a single record.
Oh, did she not? There you go.
Nope, not single. Her winning time in the the 500-yard freestyle. Her win time was 9 seconds slower than the record. So like this idea that, like I said, that, like, and what Arden just said, this idea that like trans women are dominating in sports is just untrue, and it's mostly spread by people like what's her name, the one that tied for 5th place with Leah Thomas,
Riley Gaines, yeah.
Yeah, Riley Gaines decided, well, I can't make it as a swimmer, whatever the fuck she wanted to do. So she's like, I'm just going to make money grifting the right and claiming that I was just so defeated because I came in 5th place. What? Shut up.
Do you think it's possible or even likely that given a long enough period of time where with more acceptance and I guess more equity in the sports world, that in that long enough time period that trans women overtake cis women in holding most, if not all, of those records? I mean, I fully am aware that right now, as it stands, like trans women are not a huge demographic that competes in female sports. But over a long enough time period, given enough trans athletes, do you think that it's possible or likely?
Anything's possible, but I don't think it's likely.
Yep, identical answer.
Yeah. All right. Fair. I guess I wasn't really here to debate all that much, but just kind of wanted to assess the opinions. So I appreciate it, but I got nothing else.
Cool.
All
Thanks,
right.
Day.
All right. Have a good one.
You too. Yeah, I hate the Riley Gaines shit. I'm gonna
Oh
be
yeah.
so for real.
I'm not a sports person, so getting me to talk about sports is so annoying, but I've had to understand sports only for this fucking topic because people bring it up so goddamn much. And I'm like, please stop.
I just like to make a whole career out of coming in 5th place is crazy.
That's pretty wild. Pretty sad.
All right, let's open the call-in line. Remember, first come, first serve on the call-in. So whoever calls in first, you get your call answered first. Bring the heat, boys. Remember, if you tip $5 or more, you do get puppy cam. So keep that in your head. Also, if you don't like what a guest is saying after 20 minutes, you can tip $20 and I will kick them out.
Right on.
2 is contradicting and insane. I don't know that you know what contradicting means. Hello, you're here to debate.
Wow. No. I'm actually just calling to see if I could do a shout out and say hello to you two.
Okay.
It's my birthday today, and I was just listening to you guys, and you two. Excuse me. Sorry, this is exciting for me. I talk to very many people, but I just wanted to let you two know that you guys are awesome and lovely, and I think that you both being heroes in my eyes, personally, are making the world a more beautiful and better place. So I appreciate you two, and I hope you both have the day that you deserve.
All right. Well, thank you. You too.
Yep. Bye.
Bye-bye. That was nice. Somebody in the chat just said, what science backs transgenders? Neurology, biology, sociology, psychology, like all of them.
Endocrinology. Yeah.
Endocrinology. Archaeology.
Also, I covered yesterday on our stream, a paper just got released that was like a peer-reviewed takedown of the CAS report, and it was phenomenal. It was great.
Send that to me.
Yeah, absolutely.
I want to see that. Oh, hold on.
Sit still.
Hello, are you here to debate?
Yes.
All right. Can I just get your name, age, and pronouns?
Oh, Stone.
Stone?
Yeah.
Okay, and your 8. That answered one question. What about the other 2?
Oh, 25.
Okay. 2 for 3. And then the final question, pronouns.
Oh, he and him.
Okay, great. Stone, which topic on the board did you disagree with?
Well, it's not really that I disagree with it completely. I kind of just want your opinion on so I just applied for a job recently, and the whole and here's the thing, I'm not a transphobe or anything like that. I have nothing wrong with anything like that. But I'm kind of curious on your standpoint on when a company is hey, what's your legal gender? How do you guys go about that, and how is your thinking towards that? Do you think that's something that these companies should kind of change?
If a company,
or,
what do you? I'm just confused. What do you mean by a company asking for your legal gender?
You have your legal gender, right? I just accepted a job offer and they needed my legal gender. Like I was only able to put like male or female.
Uh-huh. A lot of
Yeah, I'm just
people, a
wondering
lot of
like
trans
your
people,
stance on that.
well, a lot of
Like
trans
what would a
people's
trans
gender,
person like do for that? Would like
I guess it depends on what's on their license. If they're asking you specifically, like, what's on your license? Some trans people's license reflects the gender identity that they are. Some don't.
Mm-hmm.
okay. I mean that's really like all the only question. I wasn't like here to like kind of like aggressive debate or anything like that. I'm just kind of curious on that one point.
Okay.
All right, cool. Shout
All right.
out y'all for what y'all do.
All right. Well, have a
Thanks.
good one.
Like
You
chat saying my illegal gender. Yeah, I only put my illegal gender on anything.
Shout out to Sandwich Prime for the $10 super chat for the puppy cam and that caller's happy birthday. And Gunter for the $5 PayPal. That's why I've left the puppy cam on for a little bit. So thank you guys. Let's open the call in line back up. Hopefully we get somebody that like actually disagrees.
Yeah, it'd be nice
Love to hit a debate up here. Hello, are you here to debate?
Hello?
Yeah, you here to debate?
Yeah.
All right, what's your name, age, and pronouns?
Noah. I'm 13 or 14, sorry.
Gotta be 18, bud.
Aw.
Gotta be 18 or get like a permission slip signed by your parents.
Also, he didn't know his age, which gives me troll red flags. I'm 13, 14.
Also, shouldn't you be in school?
For real. It's a Friday.
Yeah, I don't stream people's children without their consent. I just feel like that's sort of a rule we should all have.
We do 16
You know?
at the line, but I feel like 18 is probably better. Kids be stupid.
Hello, are you here to debate?
Yeah, kind of. I just have one question for you guys that I think might be interesting.
Okay, can I just get your name, age, and pronouns first?
Yes. Tom, 32. He, him.
Tom, 32. He, him. Okay, Tom, what was the question?
The question is, what is the most compelling argument that you've heard from people that trans kids do not deserve gender affirming care?
I don't know that I've heard like a super compelling one.
You can answer any of the three prompts that you have up there. Whatever is most compelling counter argument to the statements that you put up there.
A compelling counter argument? I mean, probably the only compelling one up until I sort of learned how to combat it was for like trans women or women. People would bring up like the SRY gene as a distinction and be like, well, this is what a woman must be. But like even that like isn't super strong. I don't know. Arden, have you ever heard a compelling?
Yeah, I mean, the biological sex argument just the most compelling out of all, like, sorry, I'm stumbling over my words because you've asked me a question that doesn't really make sense to my brain. You're like, the most compelling of the collection of uncompelling arguments. Like, I consider myself a skeptic. I follow where the evidence leads, and so if it were compelling, I wouldn't be advocating for trans people. I mean, like, maybe with regard to kids, like, a consent argument could be compelling to other people, but it's not compelling when you consider that all medicine for minors is always going to be consented to by their legal guardians and not by the child themselves. And there are plenty of other medical procedures that have life-changing effects that happen when people are kids. So it's not really a compelling argument, but I understand why it compels other people.
Yeah, I just haven't heard any that are compelling. If it was compelling, it would have changed my mind. You know what I mean?
No, I disagree with you on that. It's a very complicated topic. There's a whole bunch of societal factors,
but that doesn't make sense.
Factors that make this
by definition. If it was compelling, we would be compelled. Like, that is just definitionally what that means. So yes, if it was compelling, we would be compelled.
Okay, maybe you're getting hung up on the compelling word. what is the most difficult argument somebody makes for any of these 3 points that you have a hard time arguing against?
Okay,
in
that's a
opposition
different
to any of the
question.
3 points.
That's a slightly different question.
Mhm.
Sure.
What is the toughest argument to combat on here? See, the problem is just the problem in the way I debate these topics. It's very rare that I'm defending my position. I'm usually breaking down somebody else's position.
Mhm.
But like, I think the argument that I think the right has come up with, I mean, it probably is the sports argument. It's probably the best one that they have. Like in terms of like I don't care because I think sports should be co-ed, but it is the best argument that they have. At least I feel like.
Yeah,
Anyway.
I would agree with that. I mean, the evidence on the field is also really lacking. So, like, I tend to like to appeal to like empirical evidence for a lot of my arguments, and that is one where there's not really a whole lot to appeal to because there just isn't evidence one way or another on the topic. And so I tend to just argue from like policy standpoints, and like human rights access, like, you know, like the Olympic Charter has free, fair access to sports for everyone is one of their like Olympic Charter principles. So appealing to things like that, but yeah, I don't know that I find like, yeah, sorry, I am totally getting hung up on compelling. I think that is probably the hardest one to combat though, is the sports argument, but it's also like Jovan, because I just don't give a fuck about sports. I don't care. I would like to go to a world where I don't ever have to think about sports again, but I'm in this one, you know?
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks for taking the call. Have a good one, you two.
Yep, you too.
Bye.
Yeah, I just don't think the arguments are that strong on the other side.
It totally
I think
short
if they
circuits my
were,
brain.
if they
Yeah.
were stronger, then they would have, you know, where's the like anti-trans, where's the king of anti-trans, like what is it, the what is a woman question was like their biggest one.
Mhm.
And even that is like a really weak argument. Hello, are you here to debate?
Yes.
Hello?
Hello.
Yeah, you here to debate?
Yes.
All right. What's your name, age, and pronouns?
Jericho, 21, he, him.
Jericho 21, he, him. Okay. Which topic did you disagree with?
I would actually like to introduce a topic in relation to Palestine as a person who is LGBTQ himself.
I don't debate Palestine. I don't debate what's a very clear and obvious genocide. And
well, the question is, I would just like for you to convince me as a gay man myself as to why I should support Palestinians, because I'm very leftist myself, but I encounter like moral conundrum in relation to supporting Palestine. I understand the genocide that is ongoing, but it brings about me a sort of cognitive dissonance.
You want me to convince you about why you should support a people?
Yeah, why should I support?
Why should you support anti-genocide?
Why should I support Palestinians in light of the fact
Because
that
genocide is wrong no matter what they believe, always, always, always. I don't think it's that hard.
I understand that, but it's like we go out and support them, and yet they fail to see me as human.
Yeah.
So why should I support those?
So I don't know that represents all Palestinians failing to see you as human, but it doesn't really matter. I don't care if they don't value LGBT people. I am against genocide. I don't know how to be more clear about that. Killing mass numbers of people is wrong all the time, always, no matter what they believe.
Yes, but in spite of that, do you not think that gay Palestinians would have more rights under Israeli rule?
I think gay Palestinians would have more rights if they
Hamas?
weren't dying en masse because of a genocide.
Yeah,
they'd probably be able to fight for their rights a little bit more if they weren't also fighting to like eat.
You think when Israel takes control over all of the land that they're gonna be like, now we're gonna give the gay Palestinians rights? Like, fucking obviously not.
I don't think that they will be thrown or that they will be executed.
Here's a.
No, I'm very in favor of supporting Palestinians, but it's very difficult for me when I see videos and the like of.
But you don't see anything. They can't do anything because they're currently under
I
an
care about the
apartheid
rights
state.
of LGBT Palestinians. I do absolutely. But it's just like, to me, what do I think would be the better solution? And I know she brought up, they wouldn't have any ability to really defend themselves whatsoever under Israeli rule. But it's just it's not like they would have much rights either under Hamas.
Well, we don't know what they would have because they've been under an apartheid state for 70 years.
So, what do you think is the better option in general? Do you think
Not
that it
not
would be better?
genociding them, giving them autonomy as a people, so that they can make their own rules and laws based on what they believe as a state.
You think that would be better for
Than what's happening.
LGBTQ Palestinians?
Yes, I think that would be better than them facing genocide. Yes, I think them having the ability to have some semblance of autonomy is better than them being genocided. Yes.
I mean, I agree with that. I'm not really in support of Israel either. It's just, I don't know. It just seems, yeah, I'm not in support, but I understand.
Okay.
Listen, as a trans woman, I'm not gonna go to liberated Palestine and wave my flag around, but doesn't really matter. I don't like genocide. I think this is so uncomplicated for me. This is like when we're talking about slavery in the Bible and Christians are like, well, maybe it was okay sometimes and they had debts and it was indentures. No, it's wrong all the time, always. It's so simple and so straightforward.
I'm not fond of Christians either. I'm not fond. So
not fond of it. That's interesting. I don't know what else to say, man. This is such an easy question.
I'm trying. Like I'm not in agreement with. It just makes it so difficult because I have donated. Okay, I have given to. It makes it very challenging when you would like to support these individuals and yet you just like propaganda, like videos are made that you see and which sort of contradict. Like I've seen. You want to support these individuals and yet their beliefs in Islam sort of contradict their own beliefs. It's very difficult. I mean, I don't think either solution is healthy under rule of Israel. But yeah, I believe that autonomy and Palestinian rule is probably the better option overall. I don't feel like either one is all that attractive.
I was muted. Sorry. You said I don't think either solution is healthy, but one solution is
no.
genocide. And one
In spite of obviously genocide is less attractive.
Nothing else can be done in Palestine to further any other rights of any group until they are done being genocided. They kind of don't have an option because they're not in control of their state.
Well, this has been something. I was gonna say fun, but it was not fun.
I don't know. It's just, yeah, I agree that overall it is better in spite of the atrocities that are currently being brought about. It's more so just, I feel like it's just very hard to support those who hold these beliefs towards me.
Welcome to being, I mean, not to be patronizing, because obviously, but like, this is just being a marginalized person. Like, you will always be fighting for the rights of everyone, and everyone will be not fighting for your rights. That is just the plight of being an advocate as a marginalized person. So I don't know.
I understand that the alternative to what is currently going on is obviously better. It's just like I'm fighting for these people that probably don't give a fuck about me, or like that just.
They could hate my guts, and I would still say they should not be genocided.
Yep.
I don't know how else to.
I know.
But okay,
right.
yeah.
Well,
that's
well, thank you for like the talk and stuff. It's just
okay, sure.
Free
Have
Palestine.
a good day, Jovan. I watch you all the time. But I hope you have a good day. And you
You
too.
too.
Bye-bye.
I shouldn't laugh. I just
Free Palestine.
yeah, what the I don't know what to say. I am stun locked on that one.
Free Palestine. I don't think any persons on this planet deserves to be genocided.
Correct.
Period. Point blank. Full stop. Let's keep going. Hello, are you here to debate?
Yeah.
All right. What's
So
your
I'm
name, age, and
Trevor,
pronouns?
18, use he, him pronouns. I'd noticed in your chat, some people debating about like kids transitioning, and I actually ended up transitioning when I was around 11. So I wanted to share some of my experience on that, and maybe kind of bring some more awareness to it.
Okay, so just sure, but just confirm you are not here to debate.
Yeah. I mean, I am like on kind of your guys' side on this one, but like I did notice some people in the chat when it came to like minors transitioning.
Sure. Feel free to take like 5 minutes and to go ahead.
So, I mean, like when I was younger, I went through puberty incredibly early. So I started having my first period when I was only like 9. And I kind of already knew at that time that I didn't really enjoy being a girl, both my body wise and gender wise. I'd always, hung out with boys, kind of been one of the boys, as they would say. And I used to always even like try to be on the boys' team when they would split you up, like girls and boys in like gym classes. Like I would always get super sad and try to play with the other guys.
Sure.
And like even though I was younger, I still had like a relatively grand rudimentary, but still an understanding of gender, of like, hey, I want to be in the boys' club, like even though I was a kid, I still wanted to be a boy. And I feel like, well, granted, it may not be the same thing as like a person who's older transitioning. There's still experience and validity in that.
Sure.
And I started getting like gender affirming care of, hormone blockers and stuff when I was around 13, in order to avoid periods, because in my experience, anytime I had periods, I would also become suicidal because I got super dysphoric with those kind of things. And I noticed that on hormone blockers, I didn't get periods, and I felt a lot better about that. And that's one of those things that was pretty nice. But yeah, that's part of the experience when you transition, at that age. And I don't regret it. And I think it was a beautiful thing that I'm a guy now.
Right on. I agree. I'm glad you got the care you needed, because a lot of people don't. And there's a lot of states right now where people who are 13 who are going through exactly what you're going through don't have access to care. And that's pretty fucked up. So I'm glad you were able to get what you needed. Hello?
Hello?
Oh.
Hello?
Yeah, sorry. Someone ended up calling me when I was talking. I apologize for that. But yeah, anyways, as I was on about, one thing I noticed, is my mental health improved a lot when I was able to socially transition, start wearing boys' clothes, start going by a different name. And it did help me in my case a lot. And it's one of those things where like I feel like, people just don't see the joy that comes in with transitioning. I also think that we should, maybe teach a little bit about it, to kids, not like super in depth. Like I'm not going to be teaching a little kid about like bottom surgery and stuff. But for example, teaching a little kid that like, hey, sometimes a kid might want to be in the boys group even though they were born as a girl. I think we should be allowed to teach that, you know?
Age appropriate sex education has the best outcomes in things like that, and it has like prevents teen pregnancies and unwanted pregnancies the most. It helps prevent STIs and STDs the most. Yeah, age appropriate sex education is extremely important. And if we lived in a world not run by complete fucking idiots, it would be like the law of the land in every single public school.
Yeah, plus I feel like it would prevent a lot of the bullying that I went through as a kid as well if we had actually just educated people.
Yep.
So that's my little 2 cents on it. Hope you enjoyed that little testimony. Gonna head out now. I do appreciate your guys' stream. It's very nice. Goodbye.
See you later.
Have a good one.
Debaters, please.
The next person who calls in better be here to debate. That's all I'm saying. Totally fine to talk to people, but damn, y'all, I'm trying to argue. Please. Also, we're almost to 25% of the tip goal. So if you guys wanna hit those tips. Hello, are you here to debate?
Yeah, I guess so, yeah.
Okay. What's your name, age, and pronouns?
Mary, 28, she, her.
Mary, 28, she, her. Okay, Mary, what do you disagree with on the board?
No, this is an affirmative statement. I mean, this agrees
Bruh.
with something on there. I was going to say trans women are women who have slightly more access to mental health services.
What?
Huh?
I'm talking about grown people, though.
Huh?
I just had this crazy idea in my head. I thought about it like I've experienced, as a cis woman, I've experienced dysphoria and all that jazz, even sometimes maybe even gender dysphoria when you're looking at what is normally looked at as what is an ideal female image. And the other day I was just doing research. I'm like, okay, so do cis women get gender affirming care? And everyone's like, yes, yes, yes. But I was like, do they get any through their insurance? And I was like, so basically, if you're a cis woman, you have to have like some sort of breast, like some sort of what they consider a non-cosmetic surgery if you want to have like a breast augmentation. And I thought to myself, so what's non-cosmetic about having a breast augmentation in general is what I was thinking. But honestly, I don't disagree with any of you guys' points. I'm just thinking wild.
Just real quick, the only difference would be if a trans person wants to get like an augmentation surgery of some kind, like if they want to get top surgery or whatever, it has to come with a gender dysphoric diagnosis to be covered by insurance. Because gender dysphoria,
right?
Cis people feel dysphoric. It can happen all the time. I mean, a lot of cisgender women feel dysphoric if they don't shave their legs, right? However, they're not being diagnosed with a diagnosis of gender dysphoria because it's not causing severe stress that's like impacting their lives. So that's the only reason why one would be covered under insurance and the other wouldn't.
And I wouldn't agree with that statement because I've personally known a woman, you know, that had a lot of dysphoria around their body. I guess because they felt like they were very flat, you know, much, much more than the average, woman. And, if she were to complain about that or if she were to express herself about that to somebody and she wanted to seek out help to like make herself feel better about it in like a physical form, she would have no option to like, talk to a therapist and then later on, through her insurance, try to seek treatment.
She can
technically,
seek therapy through insurance. You don't need a diagnosis code to go to therapy and for your insurance to pay for it. As long as your insurance covers
I was just
therapy,
thinking ultimately, like I'm honestly thinking of the physical transition as part of mental health care.
She probably need to be diagnosed with some sort of like body dysmorphia for.
Yeah, I just don't think it's been done for a cis woman at all.
I don't know. I don't know of any case.
Well, I don't Yeah, I don't know that the evidence supports, like, I think particularly the reason this stuff gets covered for trans people is because there's a good body of evidence that shows, like, this is helpful in improving their well-being and, like, their outcomes and helping reduce, like, gender dysphoria and all that kind of stuff. There isn't a strong body of evidence on cis people with gender dysphoria, and I know colloquially we'll often say, like, anything you do to affirm your gender or gender affirming care for cis people. And I get why we do that, but I do think it kind of causes a confusion because I don't know that it's clinical in the same way that it is for trans people. It may be, but I'm saying, like, the evidence isn't really there for it. So I think that's
Well,
why
I
we
would
don't
say
have
in
that.
general, any woman who doesn't fit within, the quote unquote ideal standard is gonna have some feelings, and some women, cis women in certain cases, are gonna have, like, they're gonna be on the extreme end of the spectrum of not fitting in that standard. So they're gonna get bullied, they're gonna get harassed, they're gonna desire to change themselves. They might get depressed, they might, have anxiety and all other types of mental illness, but they're just gonna have to, kind of just get over it.
I mean, in some cases, that's what's called for as, like, the best treatment for people, like, for body dysmorphia, not body dysphoria. So, like, when people have, like, eating disorders and they, like, actually, like, view themselves to be, a different, like, body shape or size than they are, like, it is actually what is called for is to help them cope with their body as it is and to not encourage changes. That is the best recommended treatment, as opposed to gender dysphoria, where the best recommended treatment is to seek some sort of body modification. So, I this is what I mean, where I'm like, it's not exactly the same, and that's part of the problem that I think is happening here. We may find in 10 years there may be a body of research that says actually it's the exact same, and we should be covering these things, and I totally support it. But this is kind of why I have a bit of an aversion to when we say things like Elon Musk getting hair plugs as gender affirming care, because I do think it kind of dilutes what gender affirming care is, at least in, like, a clinical sense. But
Well, I guess my original statement was they just have more access to, I guess, care for their mental health, because I would say that, like, even purchasing, like, plugs, though you don't have to get a diagnosis to purchase plugs, a wealthy person is going to be able to help themselves out in that area, and that's probably going to improve their mental health, to be honest.
yeah, I mean, it may well do, but I don't think it's totally fair to say that we have more access, because I mean, to get most of these treatments, whereas a cis woman can just, first of all, insurance isn't covering it in a lot of cases, like most cases. But even in the situations where it is, trans women have to go get approval from a doctor and a therapist proving that we are in fact trans people, we've been trans for long enough, and that we've been on medication long enough, and we're not, like, deluded or crazy. And then we have to take that to the doctor, and the doctor has to be like, okay, yeah, that's right. And then they have to appeal to insurance, which most of the time will reject you. So it's like, I don't really think it's fair to say that we have more access just because sometimes, like, a breast augmentation is covered. I don't think that's really what we're saying. I get what you're saying.
Well,
But
I feel like outside of, like, that process, of course, wouldn't exist for a balding woman, right?
I don't know what would happen. Like, if a woman had, like, alopecia or something of some variety, I don't know if there are any insurance coverage options for something like that.
You're also like
You did just make me think about Googling.
but also just like for a lot of trans people getting, like, laser hair removal or getting, like, anything done to the top of your head to, like, stimulate like follicle growth, stuff like that's not usually covered under insurance.
Yeah.
They call a lot of that a cosmetic, even though
Yeah, I
there's
feel you guys. I agree with you, and I think you're beautiful, and you're super handsome, and I hope you have a good day. And happy birthday to that guy earlier.
All right.
Thanks.
All right.
Did you hear that, Arden? She called me beautiful.
And I'm handsome. I've always wanted to be handsome.
You know, I was beautiful and handsome.
See,
I thought that was understood, that both the compliments were for me.
usually the boy compliments that I got before were slurs, so I'll take big handsome.
That's crazy. Jovan, you are very bonita. It's so funny. Just real quick, shout out to Bo for the $3 Venmo. Thank you, Bo. Okay. Hello, are you here to debate?
Yeah.
All right, what's your name, age, and pronouns?
Mark. 28. He, him.
Okay. Mark 28, he, him. Okay, Mark, what did you disagree with on the board?
Well, I just want to get some general. I agree with most of the things up there. I just want to ask you guys some questions first before we talk about this.
Okay, what questions did you have?
So, when you say kids deserve gender affirming care, around what age do you believe these kids should be getting allowed to get gender affirming care?
Well, I think it should be individualized, so whatever age they need it.
And this is, obviously, you always hear. How would you define a woman?
I think me and Arden use two different definitions. Mine is an adult human whose gender identity aligns with their schema on the female sex.
That's good enough for me. Rather than flood with different definitions, I'm happy with that one. That one does the job.
So, when you mean, but could you define what a woman is?
I just did. An adult human whose gender identity aligns with their schema on the female sex.
So, when addressing topics by teaching LGBTQIA topics in schools, why would we need that?
Because teaching kids about the differing, different types of people that exist near them helps build tolerance and acceptance, and it's also
outcomes.
and then LGBTQ history is also human history. So I don't know many kids who are taught about Harvey Milk in high school, but it's probably pretty important that they do learn about Harvey Milk or Marsha P. Johnson. They should probably learn about what was the Institute of Sexology that got burned down during World War II. They should probably know about these things,
Yeah, and I can understand that point. So why? So what? Damn, fuck. In schools, right? What is the significance of learning that? How would that better their level of education from an educational standpoint? What is learning about gender and all that has to do with education?
I think Jovan just gave you a list. It improves tolerance, and that kind of stuff is going to make it easier for LGBTQ students to actually learn when they're not, operating in a school where they're getting threatened or harassed or bullied day to day. It's a lot easier to focus on the class and the coursework at hand when you don't have to worry if the kid sitting behind you is going to trip you on your face when you're walking out the door.
Also, just we have a whole class in school that's meant to just teach you about society and social structures and cultures.
Yep. Social studies, history.
Yeah, it's right in there.
That whole bullying thing, though, there are systems in place for.
Except they're not followed, ever, for queer people. Next Benedict in Oklahoma got their fucking face smashed in a bathroom just a year and a half ago, so clearly they're not being applied evenly or fairly, right? I mean, every LGBT person I know got severely bullied and harassed in schools, and guess what? School didn't do jack shit.
Also, as somebody who used to be a bully in school, I don't think I ever faced any repercussions whatsoever, and I did some fucked up shit.
Hello?
Hello?
Sorry. Hold on.
Cricket sounds.
Oh, sorry about this. Sorry. So. Oh shit.
Bro, what are you doing on the side there?
Sorry. I'll call back in a little bit if I can. I'm in the middle of something.
Okay, no problem.
Yeah.
Oops.
Sounds like he was in the middle of rolling something and knocked over his tray.
Everybody going, I can't imagine Jovan a bully. You didn't know middle school Jovan. Middle school Jovan was an asshole. You want to know the truth? In middle school, I once dumped a bucket of popcorn on a gay kid at the movie theaters.
Ooh.
I've since apologized to that person in our adult age, but I was very homophobic in middle school. I was homophobic up until I got into musical theater and started. Do you know what I started doing?
Being
Spending
around?
time with people who were gay and realizing, oh, everything everyone around me has been saying about how fucked up gay people are is not true. I was the fucked up one. Because when you aren't exposed to this sort of stuff, also there's a whole thing we can talk about like the inherent homophobia that's like steeped within the Black community. Like this is also like a really big thing.
Sure.
But yeah, just so everybody knows. Gonna quickly read some super chats. Balthazar said, curse the mobile app for not having background playing shorts. I agree. Sunny said, when my niece came out, Arden taught me a lot listening to Takis about good allyship. As a queer
Aw.
person, I thought I was well informed. Love to you. And Lola Top Cocktail said, every week can always tell motherfucker out here looking like Greasus Goldtooth. I don't know who that is.
Sounds like a World of Warcraft character.
Oh, yeah. True.
I don't know.
I'm not a WoW player. I actually let me. No one deserves to be bullied unless in the year of our Lord 2025 you still play WoW. Then I can't help you. Sorry.
Listen, I played WoW like 2 years ago when they had the Dragon expansion come out, and you know what? It was the best expansion they'd had since Cataclysm, probably.
Okay.
I played a lot of WoW. Okay, listen. When I was getting gay harassed by kids like you in school, I played a lot of WoW.
But kids like you is so real though. All right, let's open the call-in line again. First come, first serve. Remember, we haven't really gotten any debates at all. So if anybody actually disagrees, I added a point to the board. So I added comprehensive sexual health education K through 12. Hello, are you here to debate?
Hello?
Yeah, are you here to debate?
Yes.
All right, what's your name, age, and pronouns?
My name is Zoe. I am 32 years old. And sorry, what was the other information?
I'm sorry. What did you say? What was that?
Zoe, 32. We were asking for your pronouns.
Oh, she.
Okay.
Her.
And Zoe, what topic on the board did you disagree with?
Well, before I debate, by no way I want anybody to think I'm, transphobic. There's no hate. There's always respect towards, all love to everybody.
I'll believe you, but I've never heard someone start a sentence with "I'm not transphobic" and them not then immediately say some transphobic ass shit. So I'll be reserved on this one, but okay.
Yeah, I just feel like, sometimes people are scared to debate because they're scared of the line between debating and then now arguing where there's disrespect, involved. So respectfully, I went to debate number 1, trans women are women, pretty much. My debate on it is that I feel that for me, I'm a very logical, science-based person. So it goes back to XY chromosomes and XX chromosomes.
Sure, but why would it need to go back to chromosomes if we're talking about women?
Well, that's what a woman is, because in the end of the day, right, for me, the definition, right, because there's gender and then there's sex. Gender is more of a fluid thing. It changes over time. Back in the days, women didn't wear pants. They mostly wore skirts and dresses. That stuff that explains what gender is. How you feel, what are the gender norms for female. Females are more nurturing, men are more masculine and powerful. Those can change in the next century or so. Roles can change between men and women.
Sure, but we're not really talking gender expression, right? We're just specifically talking about the gender category of woman.
Well, that's what I'm trying to say. So I'm defining what gender is. So pretty much when I'm talking about women, I'm talking more of the sex. Sex is more biology. So when I'm saying that, women, trans women are women, it's because on a biological standpoint, they don't have the the XX chromosomes.
So
trans women, yes, they can change.
I'm just curious because you're saying to you, woman is XX and man is XY. Do you have like chromosome vision? Because I've never known the chromosomes of any person I've ever talked to in my entire life.
just because you can't see them doesn't mean it's not there. It's like, same
Sure.
thing as air.
I didn't say that.
Just because we can't see air doesn't mean that we don't breathe that in.
Of course. Yeah, of course. It's there even if you don't know. But the problem is there are people who have phenotypically, like externally, their body is indistinguishable from a cis woman, right? There is an XY woman who had an unassisted pregnancy, and there are XX men, people who have XX chromosomes but have functional external male genitalia. So you really can't just tell just by looking, right? I agree with you. Most of the time, cis women are going to be XX, and most of the time, cis men are going to be XY. But the problem is that's not universal. So clearly that's not a sufficient term, right? To determine manhood or womanhood. There's something else there as well.
I'm not sure about. Yeah, sorry. Because my phone is like cutting off, so I'm like, I don't know if I'm talking over or not.
You're good.
So if a man has XX, if a woman has XX and she has male internal organs, that's what you're trying to say?
No, so there are things like there's a condition called De La Chapelle syndrome, right, where the SRY chromosome on the or gene on the Y chromosome gets translocated over to the X chromosome. So this is a person who has XX chromosomes, like most cis women, but they have external, functional, not always, but in many cases, perfectly normal, like indistinguishable male genitalia. Like everyone would have, when they were born, the doctor would have said this is a male, and they would have been raised as a man their whole life.
Yeah, so that's kind of almost plays a part, like if somebody was intersex, if they have, I heard some intersex will have like XXY chromosomes or something like that.
Yep, there are people who have XXY. Sorry,
Let
go
me
ahead.
just ask you a question really quick, Zoe, just so that I understand.
Mm-hmm.
You would agree with would you agree with the assertion that woman is a categorization term? Like woman defines a specific category of people.
Yes, on a gender scope. If we're talking about gender, yes. Sex, I feel like sex is more of a science-based view and is more
but
black
we would
and
still
white.
we still categorize groups under science.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. So you're saying so you would agree woman is a categorization. Do you don't believe trans women meet the necessary conditions to fit into that categorization?
Exactly, because I feel like you cannot just change your physical body parts, breasts or, your vagina or anything like that, or, from penis to vagina in order to be considered a woman. I don't think that's fair to categorize, I guess minimize women that way, because I think we're more than just that. I mean, earlier, I think, I don't know her name, but
Arden.
your host, she said something about the brain, how brain is different for men and women. Yes, there is studies that show that the male brain is different from the woman's brain, but has very subtle difference. Now it comes to asking questions like, well, when I was in school, I have seen girls with deeper voices than mine.
But wait, just really quickly, because I just want to make sure we're understanding here. You've said trans women don't meet. You've agreed that trans women wouldn't meet what you believe to be the necessary condition to being a woman. But what would that necessary condition be? What would be the thing that all cis women possess that no trans women possess?
I think pretty much having a uterus that is functional. Well, I'm not saying functional as like her getting pregnant, but just having a uterus, having an XX chromosome. I understand your guys' viewpoint earlier, but again, that what you guys explained earlier about they can have.
The problem with the argument that you're proposing is, one, you've named more than one necessary condition, and by just the nature of being a necessary condition can only be one thing. Because if you have another thing, then they would become sufficient conditions. But a necessary condition is required to it's like literally required to bar something from a category. It's required that you have some necessary condition. So like if the necessary condition is having a uterus, then every woman born with vaginal agenesis who does not possess a uterus, they wouldn't be women in your mind, right?
Yeah.
So what would they be?
I mean, if a woman was born with a uterus, but let's say she has, let's go back to a situation where she has the XY chromosome. Well, he has the XY chromosome and was born with a uterus. I would say that's a male because of the XY
Well,
chromosome.
she wouldn't have
So
XY
yeah,
chromosomes.
technically,
She would have
the
XX
chromosome would be the
chromosomes.
most important part for me.
Wait. Women born with vaginal agenesis would typically have XX chromosomes. So if we're saying okay, the necessary condition is actually just having XX chromosomes, then what do we do for the litany of women who have like XO chromosomes or XXX chromosomes or XXY like what do we do with the people who have more than just the two chromosomal pairings that people are used to?
Exactly, and that's why I was saying earlier that those are situations where they're more like, it's more like mutation. It doesn't normally happen.
Right.
Yeah, but a necessary go ahead, Arden, you go.
No, I was just going to say, but the whole point of this conversation, right, is we're trying to define the category. And when we're defining categories, we will often look at like limiting principles or edge cases to help us decide like where exactly the line is. And that's kind of the point we're getting at, is that you're saying XX and XY are the necessary conditions. But then when we point to people who don't fall into that category, you just say, those don't count. They're just abnormal. But we have to look at the edge cases to count. So it's like kind of convenient for you that the people who break your model, you just say, well, those don't count. Like, don't you think that makes your model kind of look silly from a scientific perspective?
Oh, yeah. I understand in that viewpoint. Like I said, that's like the very few minority. Majority of people are going to either have XX or XY. In those cases, I know medically, usually the family, and again, that's where it's like it's kind of different. It takes away from the trans environment, because technically there's more like of a medical condition that they're born with that they cannot help. And usually the family does decide.
If something is necessary to meet the category, and you let in anybody into the category that does not meet that necessary, then that thing that was necessary wasn't actually necessary to begin with. There can be zero exceptions in a necessary condition. But human sexual development is so varied that you literally can't put a necessary condition on a biological sex feature, because we're just too varied as creatures. There's too many variations in human sexual development.
There are variations, but I mean, in the end of the day, there's even if they have different chromosomes, they are gonna have other features along with those chromosomes where they're gonna favor. You can see that they can favor one sex over the other.
I've never talking about sufficient conditions. So you're saying in order to be a woman, you must meet some sort of sufficient conditions to make it into that category. But a sufficient condition doesn't bar anybody else from the category. It's just saying that these things are sufficient to be here.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I mean, I'm just saying if a woman has like an XX chromosome, right? But she doesn't have, let's say she has a uterus, but she's unable to get pregnant because she has other medical conditions. At that point, it's just a medical condition. It's not because she's not a woman. She's still a woman, even though her uterus is not functioning.
Yeah, but what makes? Let me ask you. Can you just give me what your definition of woman would be?
My definition of woman is a woman that has XX chromosomes. That is it.
Okay, so
because at the end of the day,
your definition would be a little circular, friend, because you use the word woman in the definition.
I think we could just assume person. We could just switch out woman for person, just to be charitable.
A woman, that's fine. A woman is a person with XX chromosomes.
Okay, so
that at that point it's not circular anymore.
So then let me ask you a question. Can men give birth?
Can men give birth? No.
Can women have XY chromosomes?
From what I've known, no, they cannot have XY chromosomes.
Okay.
Only
I don't know if you can
chromosomes.
still see the screen, but what I put up on screen is a case of a woman who was karyotyped pure 46XY, who was pregnant. She was pregnant via IVF and then gave birth. So either something is untrue here. Either men can give birth, or sometimes women are born with XY chromosomes. In which case, both of these break your definition.
But then you have to understand these are again anomalies where it's like this is very rare.
You don't get to that You don't get just to say they're anomalies. Like, again, this is the whole point of looking at the edge case, is to figure out where exactly your definition starts and
Well,
ends.
I'm not just saying that they're anomalies. Statistics shows that their case is more on
Yes,
the
they
rare
happen
side.
rarely, but they exist. They exist, and they contradict your definitions. That's the whole point of us bringing them up. We're not denying that they happen rarely.
What if
Yeah.
it was like 50%? If like 50% of people born this way, this happened, would you change your definition?
Sorry. Yes. Unfortunately, I would, because then at that point, it's like this is now the majority. Because at the end of the day, there's always going to be medical conditions that are going to change things. You know what I mean?
So then, but why does the frequency of something like let me give you an example. Let's say there was an island, and I said to you, "There's no gorillas on this island," right?
Okay.
And all of a sudden, we do the research and we find one gorilla living on that island. I was wrong, right? I would have to change my statement. I can't say anymore there are no gorillas on the island, because there is a gorilla on the island.
I feel like that's simplifying something, using a very simplified version of a situation that's more complex.
Okay, let me give a different one. What if I said, in order to be a table, you must have 4 legs, and then someone builds a 3-legged table? I can't use that definition of table anymore, can I? Because clearly you don't need to have 4 legs to be a table.
I mean, yeah, but at the end of the day, they still have a top, and they still have a stable base. That's what a table is.
But my definition.
They don't have
Go
to.
ahead, Arden.
No. You keep going.
I was gonna say, my definition isn't that tables needed to have a top and a stable base. It was they needed to have 3 legs. Your definition of woman was they must have XX chromosomes. But here we have a woman who, again, I'll put the source up on the board, who was pure 46 XY karyotype. She had an XY karyotyping, right? So So it would appear to be that you don't need to have XX chromosomes to be a woman.
Yeah, and I see what the argument is at. I mean, again, when I'm arguing and I'm defining something, I'm just defining it based on the majority.
So okay,
I'm not going to talk about like the exact all the little small special situations where we cannot medically. Doctors still can't medically answer, well, why does this happen? Why does this mutation occur?
Zoe, so here's the thing. If all you're saying is that most people tend to be standard XY, XX chromosomes, there's no disagreement from us. The trans-inclusive model that says trans women are women doesn't deny that most people are cisgender and have standard chromosomal karyotyping. There's nothing about trans women are women or trans-inclusive definitions of sex that disregards the statistical rate at which people tend to be sorted on through their genotype, right? But you said women have XX chromosomes. If your definition was that women are people who usually have XX chromosomes, I don't think you'd be getting any pushback from us. But you said they have XX chromosomes. So are you saying you're amending your definition now to a statistical one?
I'm not amending it because, again, it's like
Then it's like definitionally irrational, right?
We're also talking about people that have medical. Medical
that's irrelevant. That's irrelevant though, whether or not they have a medical thing. Like we're talking about like how they're categorized. So like definitionally, that's being irrational, right? Like
it is relevant because had they not had the medical condition, now
Zoe,
we don't have
I just
a
want to repeat
categorization.
really quickly, Zoe. I just want to repeat something that's really important. A necessary condition can have 0 exceptions. There can't be any. If you're saying that in order to be, like if I were to say, in order to be a dog, you must have 2 ears, and a 1-eared dog shows up, then you don't need 2 ears to be a dog, right? Or if I were to say, in order to be a human, you must have white skin, and there are non-white skinned humans, then white skin is not a necessary
that kind of
condition.
goes to the argument that I'm not trying to argue that in order to be a woman, you have to have breasts, you have to have sexual parts. I'm not even arguing that. I'm just arguing that it has to be in your DNA. because now you're talking about the dog has to have these features. We're not even talking about, you know, that a person has to have certain features, because technically a woman could have cancer, right? Have her, you know, unfortunately her breast removed. That doesn't mean that she's not a woman anymore.
Okay, I'm gonna steal something from the chat real quick, because I think this might really
Yeah.
illustrate this more. Because we're talking about like frequency and whether frequency matters and things like that. I'm gonna make a statement. You tell me if you agree or disagree with it. Okay.
Okay.
Humans must have blonde or brunette hair. Do you agree?
Um, I feel that humans have different shades of probably different shades of color, different shades of brown. That makes better because it's blonde, dirty blonde, brown, and then there's black hair.
Sure. I'll
There's
rephrase
really
it slightly.
technically shades of
Humans
brown.
can't have red hair.
I mean, red hair is literally just a combination, from what I heard, of I think brunette and blonde hair.
Yeah,
So you
well,
have a parent that
humans
has
don't have red.
blonde hair
Humans
and one
don't
that's
have red
brunette.
hair. Humans don't have red hair. Humans must have one of the other hair colors. Red hair does not count. Do you
Okay,
agree?
I mean that doesn't make sense because, like I said, like if you put a blonde and a brunette, which both exist, you get red hair.
Yeah, but that's so infrequent that it doesn't count. Only like 1% of the population is redheaded, so it doesn't count.
Yeah, those are just anomalies.
So infrequent.
No, I understand where you're coming from with that, but I'm just saying that we're talking about trans, and then we're talking about medical conditions. You know, medical conditions that don't happen often.
Okay.
That's
So
the whole point of the analogy.
I think that I agree with your host though, that I think our definitions are different, and because our definitions are not aligning, there's really not a debate here because our definitions just
Well, that's
don't.
why we're trying to sort out the definition. That's why we're trying to understand. You are saying it's a necessary condition, and we're saying, but here are people who are really uncontroversially women who don't fit your definition. So we're trying to sort out
That's
the
what I'm
definition.
saying.
That's the whole
I
point.
feel like I'm talking about the majority. I feel like for intersex people, I just don't agree that
The
they should
majority
fit
doesn't
this
matter when we're talking about necessary conditions that apply to all humans.
Yeah.
So
then you would have to acknowledge if you say yes to that. Sorry, go ahead,
Why
Jovan.
you think? Yeah, I just want to know why you think sex and gender have to be the same thing.
Wait, if I'm saying that sex and gender have to be the same,
Yeah.
sex and gender don't have to be the same. I mean,
but you're defining woman by sex.
Gender is more of a social role in society.
Like, are
You're
you
more
ready? When
feminine,
you
you're more
define
masculine.
woman as, when you use the definition of woman to be like anyone with X chromosomes, well then like a female dog would be a woman under that definition. You know?
Well, when I'm saying woman, I'm talking about the actual biology of it, which is the sex. I'm not talking about the gender.
But that woman is a gender term, not a sex term. The sex term is female.
Okay, well, sorry, I was using both of them interchangeably, the
But
woman
if
and
you
female.
recognize that sex and gender are different, then you would recognize that you can't use them interchangeably because they're different.
Okay, but regardless, you know, like my argument still stands. I feel like because the majority of women are XX chromosome and majority of men are XY chromosome.
Majority doesn't matter.
Women are not women.
But what? Okay. I just feel like you're still
I'm getting dizzy.
conflating
I feel like a kid on the playground, you know, where they spin the merry-go-round and they go really fast. I feel like I'm on the merry-go-round right now.
Yeah, like I said, you know, I agree to disagree at this point because I just feel like intersex should not be involved in this argument because it is a medical condition. That's
You're the one
separate.
who keeps using sex as a category distinction for women, so
Yes.
it has to be the argument. If you don't want sexual conditions to be in the argument, then you shouldn't be using sexual conditions to speak about whether
But
someone is a woman.
but that's the thing though. It's the majority of the population is either X, Y, X, X.
Cool. The majority of the population
You know,
also is like either blonde or brunette, right?
This
That
is
doesn't mean
like,
redheads don't exist.
yeah, the majority of the atoms in the universe are what? Is it hydrogen and helium? I don't remember. It's only like 2 of them, right? On the periodic table, and like the rest are like less than like 1% of what's in the universe. Like you can just that's why the statistics argument just doesn't get you anywhere. It doesn't do anything when we're talking about definitions and necessary conditions for like being a member of a category. We've been on this rodeo now a few times around. I don't know, and we're just getting the same like thought terminating cliche. So I don't really know what else to do from there.
okay, no problem. Well, thank you.
Okay.
Okay. I'm gonna run to the bathroom real quick before we queue up the next one, or I will hop in the middle.
No, go ahead. I'll wait for you to get back. I'll entertain chat until you get back. How many times must we say the frequency doesn't matter, chat? The frequency of something does not matter in its existence. Oh boy. Yo, we're almost to the tip goal. If you want to help us reach our tip goal today, consider donating either Cash App, Venmo, or super chats on YouTube, all of which go to the tip goal for the day. I had the tip goal showing on the YouTube and now it's gone. Where did I put it? Oh, here it is. There it is. Wabam. Let's say thank you to some of the super chatters and go through there. Sean, thank you for the super chat. Said one used to be a prime until we learned more about him. Okay. A blessed Kittle. Keep up the good work, educating the people. The most important thing to do now. I agree. Balthazar said, when are we going to grow up and require number 3 to be medically accurate and taught both in schools and at home? You shouldn't be able to get medically inaccurate LGBT info by homeschooling. I agree a little bit, yeah. Balthazar said, when will we finally tackle the real propaganda being pushed by Britain to children about trains? People, that's the most autistic shit I've ever heard. I agree. Train people, though, the medium of Thomas the Tank Engine, that's so funny. That is actually so funny. I agree. Brian, thank you for the Venmo. Here's the puppy cam for you. Kami's asleep right now.
Aww.
His name is Kami.
Now I feel like I
Kami.
need to get reptile cams.
Do it. You would have so many. You could set up so many cameras back there and just put them on a switcher.
You never see anything from this one. These fuckers don't move. So goofy. You pick them up and they just stay still, and I'm like, are you actually alive in there? I can't tell. Reptile cam, please. Hey, you know, if you guys want to buy me like how many 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 little like GoPros that I can mount in there, I'm all for it.
That'd be kind of funny. You just set up a 24/7 live feed of the snakes and just leave it on with like music in the background. That's just generating cash right there.
Low key, not a bad idea. Not weed killer. That is a bottle. That's a mister. That's just full of water. Because most of these are tropical to some degree, and so they need to be misted regularly.
Yo, Bomber Blue Shirt, thank you for the gifted sub over on Twitch. All right, let's open the call line. First come, first serve. We've only had one like debate this whole stream, so hopefully we get another. Hello, are you here to debate?
Yes, I am.
All right, can I get your name, age, and
Good.
pronouns,
How are you?
please?
Oh, sorry. My name is Benjamin. I'm 35 years old, and my pronouns are he, him.
All right, Benjamin. Off topic, but I really don't get many pronoun crash outs anymore.
Right.
Changing the world one pronoun at a time. Okay, Benjamin, what topic do you disagree with on the board?
Trans women being true women.
Okay, what is a true woman?
I believe a true woman should be defined by their chromosomes and DNA. So you heard before the last argument, the woman was kind of stuck hard to that last term of XXXY, but refused to kind of elaborate on that.
Uh-huh.
Well, I believe one of the major issues we have to look at is genetically, when it comes to looking at women, we were taught in school, even though we're trying to change it now, that XX is what women are born into.
Well, I would consider XX to be a feature of genotypic sex, not gender. So that would just be the differing here, right? Like, I agree that like for most of the 80s and 90s, like when kids were in school, they were taught like, hey, females are women, but that was like bare bones basic level biology. And when you get into like more advanced biology, you realize like how varied human sexual development is. So I don't think it really works to use sex to define women.
I think, though, we have to in a way because women have reproductive organs, and usually if those organs are damaged or anything, it's by a genetic disease or by an outside term or
But then so
outside
some
condition
women
to
wouldn't
happen
have
with.
those. But yeah, but that would mean that it being caused by a genetic thing doesn't matter. That would still mean that some women don't have this. You know what I mean?
Yes, exactly. But they'd still be classified as women because they were born with the XX chromosomes.
What about the ones that aren't?
Well, that's hard to describe because the ones who are born without that usually is a genetic anomaly and isn't really common. It's kind of the outlier of that effect.
Yeah, but the frequency wouldn't, because right now you are making a necessary condition to be a woman. For this category distinction, you're saying you must be born with XX chromosomes. But now you're agreeing that there are some women that aren't born with XX chromosomes, but they still meet that classification of woman. So what is the thing that's classifying them as women?
I guess to an extent, it has to be the fact that you are born with the XX chromosome because if you're not, and say you're born naturally as a man, but you feel as your personality as you grow up in age, you identify as a woman, I don't really see how that allows you to say you're a true woman or even labeled in the woman category.
So I don't think we need to even appeal to trans women to point to the problems with using chromosomes as your definition, your standard for women. We can just forget about trans women for a second here because it's not even, you don't even need to appeal to them to point out to the flaws with the XXXY definition.
What are the flaws of it?
Things like Jovan already pointed out, there are women who aren't XX. There are women who are XY. There are women who don't have a uterus. Like, there are exceptions to all of these. So they can't be necessary conditions, right?
No, but there should be a strong basis for it. Maybe there are outliers, like the whole world is a spectrum and everything falls into different categories. And yes, things will change its way. But there is just the fact that when you're born as a woman, you are born with a pair of chromosomes that are dedicated and defined by you.
So the
Yes,
trans-inclusive definition of sex, the trans-inclusive understanding of biological sex, again, doesn't in any way dispute that most women, most cisgender women, are born with XX chromosomes. That is not in contention. The statistical rate at which most people tend to be born cisgender with the expected chromosomes is not in contention at all. But my model allows me to account for the fact that most women are born cisgender with XX chromosomes, and that some women are born XY, or they're born without a uterus, or they are trans women. My model accounts for what you're talking about and the exceptions to the rule. Your model can't account for the exceptions, and that's kind of the thing we're objecting to here.
Understandable. But if we start allowing people to define their own genders, where do we draw the line at? When do things start getting a little too unnecessary, like when it comes to self-identification?
Well, I think we would have to let people define their own genders because like gender is an identity-based system. And so like the only person that can tell you what my identity is me.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like who else can, like gender is inherent to the mind. It's inherent to your perception of oneself. So only the self can make an identity claim. That'd be like if somebody said to me like I'm Christian and I was like no you're not. Like I can't really make that claim for somebody.
Mm-hmm.
I can say you don't meet my characteristics of what I would consider a Christian, but I can't tell you that you're not. Or the best one I like to use is friend. right? Like me and Arden could have two completely different criteria for what makes someone our friend. But I can't look at Arden and go, well, they're not your friend because they don't meet my criteria of friend. Right? You're making determinations that are like, you know, in the mind. So it's sex is a mind independent trait, but gender is a fully mind dependent trait.
Well, I mean, it's not just a full mindset. It is also biological. They're born with, you know, higher levels of estrogen, higher levels of, I mean, maternal instincts. They have a womb. Some do, unless there's, you know, like
I
my
would
friend who
push
had
back on the
cancer and they
maternal
had to have
instincts
it
thing.
removed.
I think that's mostly socialized in nature, and it's not like
Mhm.
it's not of the case that all women are born with maternal instincts and are more maternal than men. It's just the way that we've socialized men and women. I would say most traits that we consider like womanly or manly are socialized traits.
Well, that's an interesting viewpoint, but don't you see how things could slowly get dangerous when other people who have a more darker mentality start to use the woman excuse to like invade women's bathrooms or, you know, find ways to. Oh, I'm sorry.
No, I'm excited you're going down this lane because I always think this is like, it's a really common talking point. So I don't blame you at all for like kind of going down this line. Like it's blasted in the media all the time. So of course you're thinking about it. But I think it's so silly because if, first of all, the majority of sexual assaults happen like in the home or in the church, they're happening by a close family friend, someone that the victim knows very well. The vast majority, so it's like, it's almost never happening by strangers in a bathroom. But even if it were, even if that weren't the case, that most sexual assaults are happening by someone the victim knows, like the notion that somebody would go through transition to assault someone is so silly. Like that is the most cumbersome way you could possibly go about committing a crime, right? Because like there's no bathroom guards right
I'm not
now.
talking about them going through the full transition. I'm saying as soon as they caught doing something wrong, like a creepy dude entering a woman's bathroom to peep on them, he's like, oh, no, I just identify as a woman, and tries to like weasel his way out of it.
There's two things that I have wrong with this assertion. First of all, a sign on a bathroom ain't stopping somebody.
Yeah.
Like somebody wants to assault you, it doesn't matter if the sign says woman or the sign says men. They're going in.
I was going to assault you, but the sign stopped me.
The
Sorry.
sign stopped me, right? But like more importantly, I think it'd actually be easier for men to fake it if we designate bathrooms by sex. Because then, like, let's say you have someone that looks like Arden and you have someone that looks like me. Okay. Now, let's say, let's just, in our hypothetical, I am a cisgender man. That's weird. I am a cisgender man, but let's just say I'm a cisgender man. Or you know what? We'll do two hypotheticals. Let's say I'm a transgender man. Let's say I was a trans man, right? And Arden is a trans woman. Who would you rather go into the bathroom, into like the woman's restroom? Me or Arden? I wouldn't say me, right? I would be more comfortable if someone that looked like me went into the men's room.
That's true. I would hope he would go into the men's bathroom, but
if we separate bathrooms by sex and we do bathroom bans, I might have to go into the women's bathroom. And even more, in even deeper hypothetical, let's say we do this, and now I'm a cisgender man who wants to creep. I can just lie and say I'm a trans man.
Yep.
I can just be like, yeah, I'm trans. I have to be in here because of the bathroom bans. What are you going to check? We can't pull down my pants. So now what do we do?
No, you're right. But work in security, I've noticed a lot of weird things. Like when it comes to like the creeps trying to pry in, that is right now their number one excuse is their identification.
So,
and it's just not okay what they're doing.
So if anyone creeps or assaults someone, obviously that's wrong. It doesn't matter if they're cisgender or transgender. They should be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law for an actual crime committed. But I'm not actually convinced that, like, no offense, just by your say-so, that there's any, like, they've actually done studies and they found that there has been, like, no evidence of increased rates of reports of sexual assault in counties that have had progressive, trans-inclusive bathroom laws. So I'm not convinced that there's actually, like, If you have seen multiple instances of men doing that and using this excuse, you should be reporting that to some like research study, because it would be an anomaly. And I'm sure the right-wing media that would be the one research study they actually want to fund right now. So, yeah, there's like no evidence of that happening on any meaningful scale at all.
You know what? That's fair.
Yeah,
But it's
you
just
know,
one
and
of
it's
those weird
just
things. But like, where do you draw the line on identification, though? Do we allow everyone to just kind of choose whatever they want to be, like to the full extent of it?
I think as long as you're not
Because
hurting
it does.
anyone and your decisions about your identity are based in harm reduction and consent, then yeah, like what harm would it cause for everyone to identify as they want to identify?
Yeah, I think people already do that, right? Like there's nobody's going around policing like when you say you're a man. I doubt people, Benjamin, are pulling down your pants or being like, let me get your blood sample to make sure I take your karyotype so I know you have XY chromosomes. Like, no, they just take your word for it. You look like a man, you meet my expectations, sure, you're a man. Like that, but that is just all social enforced self-report, right? That's not like, there's nothing scientific happening there.
So, do you believe that trans people, like when they fully transition and they make the full body augmentations to look as they feel, do you feel like they can hide that part of their past when they open up into a dating relationship, or do you think they should be honest? Like, I was once born as a woman, but then I transitioned, changed, and this is who I am now? Or do you think they should just keep it a secret from the person?
Well, this is a complicated thing. Okay, so like obviously honesty is always going to be preferable in a relationship. However, you have to recognize that we live in a society that is very transphobic. There's a lot of violence towards trans people. So as a trans person, if I'm going on a date,
at all.
what?
Oh, I was saying I don't argue that at all. I
Yeah.
know that trans people get horrifically bullied for their choices in life or lack of choices in life with what hand they were born with. But
Yeah.
I
So
mean,
like
unfortunately, people don't need a reason to bully other people. They just look for the reason. Whichever is the easiest is just kind of what they cling on to.
right, which is
though.
why I'm saying that I don't think trans people should be compelled to divulge their trans status when they're first meeting someone. I think if somebody tells you, if I would never want to date a trans person, if I found out you were trans, that would be a violation of trust, and they say that on the first date and you don't disclose then, maybe then there's some sort of like moral culpability or something. But personally, I don't think it's fair to compel trans people to come out when they're just starting to date someone, because I don't know that you're safe. As far as I know, you could be an extremely violent person, and telling you could put me at great risk of harm. That's why I think trans people should be allowed to date people and get to know people and trust that they're safe before they come out. Just like anything else in dating, you aren't owed, like, if dating a trans person would be a deal breaker for you, but you didn't tell them, right? You aren't owed that information right away. And if they don't feel safe enough to tell you, or you've given them reason to feel unsafe, they are perfectly justified in not telling you. Am I going to risk my safety because you have some insecurity about the implications for your sexuality that you are attracted to me? Like, that's not my fault. That's completely on you. So I don't think trans people should be compelled in any way to out themselves on a date. Now, obviously, again, honesty is always preferable, right? Like, once you've been on a few dates and you've determined that this person is either trustworthy or not, I think it's probably a good idea for you to come out to them and protect both your safety and, you know, if you're seeing a relationship with this person, like, you would want to be honest with them and be like, hey, this is my situation, and let the relationship stand or fall on those merits. But yeah, no, I think it's so wildly unrealistic to expect that trans people are going to be like, hi, nice to meet you. Thanks for finding me attractive. I'm transgender. Like, that's a good way to get fucking killed in today's world.
Unfortunately, I do have an opposite story, and it is heartbreaking, where a friend of mine I grew up was born a male, transitioned to a woman, got the augmentation to look very attractive, very beautiful, had a one-night stand with a dude, started dating him, and then after revealing they were trans, was horrifically beaten by them and had their jaw wired shut after the beating.
Yeah, so why
And
would
I
anyone
don't
want to come
condone
out on the
that
first
action
date?
whatsoever.
If that can happen, why would anyone want to come out on the first date? Because it's exactly because stuff like that happens that trans people don't come out. to our
it's
partners.
because they hooked up, and then she revealed at one point she was a man. The dude did get livid and like freaked out, and that's when the assault happened. And again, I do not condone that. That was a friend of mine who grew up. Like I grew up with them all of high school.
Benjamin, real quick, this is just what happens when the right pulls trans panic, right? This idea that a trans, like the guy was attracted to her, he liked her, he
They had
slept with her
sex.
and enjoyed it.
Yeah.
They had sex, he enjoyed it. But now all of a sudden, because of who she was in her past, he gets violent, right? This is the Maury and Jerry Springer effect in action, right? Because a whole generation of people have been convinced that trans people are trying to trick them, or like, who cares? Like, what do you, who like, if you're attracted to someone and you enjoyed sleeping with that person, what does it matter if they used to identify as a man? Like, what is, like, it is just this person reacting out of internalized homophobia and internalized misogyny, trans misogyny specifically.
I just wonder though, if they were honest on the first, like that first night, if my friend would have had no assault happen, like if he was just, hey, I was a man, I transitioned, are you okay with this? And the other dude was like, no, I'm definitely not okay with this. I feel like it would have been a safer route than what happened.
Yeah, you think the person who would beat the shit out of someone for their own insecurity is going to be like, oh, thank God for telling me. Now I'll go on my way. Like, no, that sounds like he would have done the exact same thing in any scenario. Like, there's no winning for trans people in this scenario. There's no right time to disclose that is ever going to protect us from violence, which is why I tell people you don't have to disclose on the first date. You can disclose as soon as you feel fucking comfortable. If that's on the first date, awesome. And that's why a lot of trans people, because most dating is happening on apps nowadays, we put that we're trans in our bio. So, like, you should know before you even talk to us that we're trans in most cases, right? But the thing is, a lot of people live in conservative areas where that might not be the safest thing to do. So I definitely, I think it's completely the fault of the person who's beating the shit out of trans people to blame here, and not the trans person who's getting the shit beat out of them. That they like, oh, if you had just disclosed a little bit earlier, maybe they wouldn't have, put you on the brink of death. Yeah, that sounds like some nonsense rape culture misogyny bullshit to me.
Like, I think that if somebody has a genital preference, that's totally fine.
Mm-hmm.
It's totally fine. There are people who just aren't attracted to certain genitalia. Totally fine. But if you're talking about dating somebody with the genitals you prefer, who you connect with, who you're attracted to, who you enjoy spending time with, and then finding out, well, they're trans means you're going to lash out in violence, bruh, that's a you problem. That's not a problem of the trans person. That is 100% a you and violence problem.
Well, I'm not saying I'm the one who got violent. This was just some random dude, and I feel completely bad for my friend who was beaten by that, because it was an unnecessary assault. It was completely not called for.
Yeah, I agree.
I don't know what that person did whatsoever, because that was a personal friend of mine.
Let me ask you a question. Do you think trans people, and this somebody in the chat kind of brought this into my mind, do you think trans people should like wear some kind of identifying like piece on their clothes so that everybody knows they're trans?
Oh my God. Like the Jews during the Holocaust? Absolutely not.
Okay. Just making sure.
No. What I feel like is, just like in any relationship, there should be the honesty up front, and both people should make the choice. Like,
okay, let me ask you
be
this.
open about who you are. You shouldn't have
should
to
I have
hide
to
what you are. If you're proud that you're a woman or a transitioning
We shouldn't
woman,
have to, but
why
we
are you
do.
hiding it?
We shouldn't have to, but we do, because we live in a society that's violently transphobic, that beats trans women when they find out, I was attracted to you and had sex with you and enjoyed it, but now I know you're trans and that makes me angry. Like, that's, we have to hide it. It's not our fault until society stops beating the shit out of us for existing. I don't know what you want.
Like, if I went to prison previously, should I have to disclose that at the start of my relationship?
Yes, because it really depends on what you went to prison for. If you're a violent rapist, you should definitely divulge that you or at
Well,
least
I would just argue that violent
that
rapists shouldn't be dating, period. But like,
Oh,
but like if I went to prison for like robbery and it was like 10 years ago and I'm now like 10 years older and I've changed, like, do I need to, or let's just say in my past, I was a super, like I was a fucking hardcore criminal. I robbed, I stole, or here's a better one. Let's say I was an addict. Let's say I was like a
oh, I
hardcore
was,
addict, but
and
I've
I
been,
always divulge
but
that
let's
to
say I've
people
been
all the
sober for
time.
10 years. Let's say I've been sober for 10 years. Do I have to disclose up front immediately that I used to be like that I was an addict? Do I have to disclose that stuff? Or is it okay to bring that up when I'm ready to tell the person?
No, I think you should you should openly say that. Like, I was an addict. I've been clean for 11 years now, and I straight up let people know, like, hey man, I used to be a heroin addict. That way, people can be like, all right, so you're sober now. I'm like, yeah. And if I find out you're going to do certain things around me, I need to get the fuck away from you because I do not want to relapse ever.
I think it's kind of an unrealistic thing to expect that somebody has to divulge all of the potentially deal-breaking facts about them to a potential partner on the first date. Because how many things could potentially be a deal breaker for someone, right? Like not being able to get pregnant could be a deal breaker, but that could be deeply traumatic for the person who's not able to get pregnant. Do they need to bring that up on the first date because the other person really wants kids and they wouldn't have dated you if you hadn't known? I don't think so, because you don't get that information all the time. Dating is supposed to be a process where you get to know the person, you find out if you are compatible. Like this notion of like, I have to divulge all the potentially deal-breaking factors right away, or else I'm wasting your time, is just ridiculous.
I don't know. I saw a woman on a dating app one time say no blacks. So I think if you don't want to date a trans person, just say that in your bio.
True.
Like, I don't think it's up to the trans person to have to divulge. I think it should be up to you to tell people what you don't want up front.
I know, but you guys are hitting like real seriously, like weirdly close points to home because one of the friends I dated, one of the first things she revealed is she had cancer. She had her uterus removed. She was unable to have kids. She knew I wanted to have kids, but I made the conscious decision. I loved her so much that I'd rather be with her than like be with some stranger or try to go out there again and find someone who could have kids.
Yeah,
I mean,
think.
it's just
But
the way it
imagine a
is.
world. Imagine a world where any woman who was like sterile, who couldn't have kids, either via having cancer or whatever the reason might be, also was at significantly higher risk of being brutally murdered. Would you then be like, yeah, it's probably best you don't tell me that up front? Because you never know if the person is going to be a brutal murderer. It sounds like your friend finally opened up when they were comfortable with the person, and the person still turned out to be a violent sociopath.
You know what? You're not wrong on those last two statements. I will admit, if there was a fear of violent actions coming out, you should hide it. But at what point, like when you reveal it, it's not going to get safe then by that logic. Like if you reveal 5 years down the road or 2 weeks down the road,
okay,
the violence is still going to come.
We're not talking about hiding this for 5 years. Like if you're going to start a relationship with somebody, relationships are built on trust, and I think it's really important to be honest in a situation like that. But like we're talking about like dates, like we're talking about disclosing on first dates, right? Like that's where the risk is. Like I don't think there is a perfect timeline, and I think if someone feels good enough to say it on the first date, that's probably a good idea. Like being upfront as early as possible is always going to be preferable to waiting. But the reality is that conversations are hard, people are imperfect, and relationships are not always like linear or don't always follow the perfect timeline. I think if somebody waits till date 3 to tell you they're trans, that's not a big deal. If somebody waits till date 7 to tell you they're trans because you guys are moving really slowly, who fucking cares? Like, you still have the right as the other person to say, oh, cool, I don't mind, I really like you, I want to stay dating you, or sorry, that's actually a deal breaker for me, as much as I like you, we're going to have to go separate ways, right? Like, you can be adult about it either way. Nobody's saying, like, you have to, now that you know I'm trans, stay with me, ha ha ha, I've trapped you. It's not about that. It's about, like, honesty and communication and safety. Like, just doing things in the way that is good for everybody involved, and while you might want to know on the first date, that might not be the best thing for everybody involved.
I don't know though. Part of me still feels like the violence would still happen. The violence is going to happen no matter when the reveal is.
So if
you
I
reveal it
if I
early
think on day 5 I realize,
then
oh, this person's gonna kill me if they find out I'm trans, you know what I do? Never talk to them ever again. I block them on everything. I block their number. I never speak to them again. Whatever you have to
that's
do.
the most logical thing to do.
Well,
is
you
just to
never
get away from
know
that situation.
with you never know with men when the violence is going to come. Like most women who date people that are domestic abusers, right? They don't know that that person's a domestic abuser before they get into the relationship. You find that out when the domestic abuse starts happening, right? Like my biggest thing is how about why don't we instead of saying trans people should have to disclose in case someone's violent, why don't we just try to destigmatize the transphobia and ingrained homophobia and misogyny that exists and teach cisgender men specifically that like you're not gay if you date a trans woman, and even if you were, it's not a bad thing. Like it's not like you're not going to get hurt, your ego's not going to get fractured, you're not going to fucking burst into flames because you find someone hot and you want to spend a night with them just because they're like why don't we teach? This is part of why the board, because right now we stigmatize trans people so much that the minute someone finds out someone's trans, they go, "Oh, how dare you? Oh, blah blah blah," and blah blah blah. Again, it's the Jerry Springer and Maury effect, because these two motherfuckers created a show where half the fucking plot lines were, "Oh, trans person's tricking another person." It's stupid. Instead, we should be teaching men, don't be. I mean, bare minimum, don't be violent, right?
Yeah. If you have a problem with the trans woman you're dating, be an adult and say, okay, that's a deal breaker for me. I'm really sorry. I wish you the best of luck and go home.
I'm just going to say this on a weird off note. Every dude should just kind of basically accept the fact that they're somewhat homo in at least one way or another, because even dudes who act 100 complete straight will still watch porn and be like turned on by the dude's dick while he's going into a woman. So every dude should kind of grasp onto the idea that you're a little gay on the spectrum, man. Like every dude's
I mean, I agree. Porn where you don't see the penis is kind of boring, but like
Yes, I would agree that there's no like state that your brain is in. Like people like to frame it as like a 1-0 on off gay straight brain state, and that is not what's happening. Like you just like there's no reason I know why I like vanilla ice cream or why I like Full Metal Alchemist. I don't know why I like the people that I'm attracted to on like a romantic and sexual level, and all of those things should be existing on like a bit of a spectrum. Sure.
If it fits, it ships.
Well, vanilla ice cream is delicious, and Full Metal Alchemist is a fucking badass show that hits hard, but
true.
You should just kind of accept the fact that like dudes are going to be fucking violent monsters, because for the most part of like all of human history, they're the ones who had to go out and rip things apart with either their fucking swords or guns. There's always been a high level of testosterone and violence that comes from the male side, and it's just kind of ingrained in them because of hundreds, if not thousands of years of just terrible existence and fighting.
Benjamin, I have higher hopes for men than it sounds like you do. Men are perfectly capable of not being violent people, and I think we can affect that by teaching them, like Jovan was saying, like the just LGBTQ education in schools, like having conversations with men, trying to reach them and realize that this isn't a trap. If you find out that the person you're dating is trans or can't get pregnant or any other factor, and that if they are and that's a problem for you, again, the thing is to just be a fucking adult and to walk away. Like, okay, not every relationship's gonna work out. There's, what, like 8 billion people on the planet? I think there's some other options if this one doesn't work out for you.
And I fully agree with that.
Cool, then we're on the same page. Trans women don't have to disclose on the first date. Word. Thank you, Benjamin, for your allyship to the trans community.
I've never been against trans people. I just like to debate just to have fun.
Right on.
Okay. All right. Well, it's been 30 minutes, so we're going to bring up the next guest, but thanks for calling in, Benjamin.
Yep. You guys have a great day.
You too. He said we're all at least a little bit gay. Based as fuck.
True. I was gonna... There's an analogy that I like to use sometimes, but I felt like it was gonna clog the space if I brought it up there, where relating to snakes, like in Violent Men, how it's like most snakes aren't venomous. The ones that are rarely going to envenomate you even when they bite you, but some will, and the ones that can might be able to kill you, right? So I always tell people, like, it doesn't matter if you can't identify the snake. Like, if you don't know snakes, assume all snakes are venomous, right? Treat them all with the respect that you would a venomous snake and leave it alone, because you don't know which ones are, even if they're extraordinarily rare. And same thing with men. Like, I don't think most of them are violent. I think, unfortunately, way more than venomous snakes are, but we can't really suss it out. So kind of treat them all like they are potentially at first.
I agree. We're gonna open the call-in line in just a second. Remember, first come, first serve on call-in. So first person to connect when I open the line will be the first person to chat. We are sitting at 145 of 200 of our daily tip goal. Just a reminder, everything counts towards this. Super chats, tips to the Venmo, Cash App, PayPal, all that does count. If you do tip over $5, I try to, if I see it, put the puppy cam on. L Real Pet Chicken said, super chat said, from it, sounds like those men are the problem in that scenario. They're assaulting people. This is not a trans people's fault. Agree. It's not the trans person's fault if they're getting assaulted. It's the fault of the person that assaulted them. I heard that thing. If you made art, you can send it to me on Instagram, or Instagram would be the best way. But here's a puppy cam for the donation. Kami is asleep right now. He's
Puppy
not.
cam. Oh, look at that baby. Oh, he's so cute.
Yeah, it's a little Kami.
I don't know what it is about small fluffy animals. I just want to, like, condense them into a little ball that I can bury my face in.
Someone said, where do tips go to? My pocket. It's my full-time job, so tips are always appreciated, never required. Someone commented, real trans wipe back to front, and that fucking is the craziest shit I've read all day.
Wait, read that again? What? Oh, you muted.
They said real trans wipe back to front.
Oh my god, disgusting. What's wrong with people?
Craziest shit I've ever read in my life. YouTube chat is wild.
Listen, I could never say his name, but my best friend does that, and the only thing that's a flaw with him
is wiping back to front.
Yes.
Hello, are you here to debate?
Yeah, kind of. Like, it's not on the board, but I want to know, like, the best argument for why, like, specifically in combat sports, why it's okay for trans women to participate. I do agree with most things on the board. It's not all.
The best argument for why it's okay for trans women to compete, because I believe everybody deserves to be punched in the face every now and again. That's why. I don't know, because why not? I guess.
Okay, I mean, like, usually it's like a, more of a scientific answer as to why, like, study based. I do agree, but
the burden of proof for people who think that trans people pose a, like, statistically significant risk to the safety of women in combat sports, it's the burden of proof is on them to show that. You don't get to assume that trans women are going to have the same rights as cis men, and I don't think that burden of proof has been met. Like, I know Fallon Fox, who gets referenced in these conversations all the time. She's been beaten by cis women tons of times, and she has fought cis women tons of times and lost. The one, they talk about her breaking someone's skull. It's like the most common injury in mixed martial arts. So, like, it's not like she actually.
It was an orbital fracture, which, it's the most common eye injury.
Yeah, it's like completely unremarkable. There's not real, like, Olympics have been taking women or trans women who meet the standards for like 20 years, and none have even qualified. So, when there's evidence of some epidemic of, like Jovan was saying earlier, where trans women are just winning every single competition all the time, maybe there's a discussion there, but we're not seeing anything even close to that right now.
Okay, because, like, I hear all these, like, talking points about combat sports specifically. And the way that I sort of think about things is, I try to be inclusive in all walks. If there's not a reason to not be, then I try to be. But I never really had like an argument other than that. But if there's no proof, you know, that kind of just is on them, I guess.
Yep.
Yeah, if they're making the ought statement, which is trans people ought not compete in women's sports, then they need to back up that ought statement.
Understandable. Well, that was pretty much it. My name is Drazy, 21. That's it.
All right. Well, have a good one.
You too.
Easy.
Bye.
I gotta quickly let the dog out to piddle paddle.
Yeah.
So let's see if we can't get another call, and Arden can take that call while I quickly bring the dog out.
Hell yeah.
So if you call in now, you'll it's a you versus Arden.
Yeah, I don't get to mute you.
Our line is open. Hello, are you here to debate?
Hey there. It's not on the board, and that's because I support trans people. But I don't want to be a downer, but at the same time, I know you guys were talking about disclosing a lot. I feel like disclosing all your information on the first date is just socially not aware in general. Like,
True.
no matter who you are. But at the same time, I think disclosure before sex kind of just makes sense, because I feel like if you don't, then that's rape by deception. Like, say for instance, if I have HIV, even if I'm undetectable and you're at zero risk of having HIV, some people, if you tell them that, years down the line, will feel very emotionally hurt that you didn't share that information with them very early on.
So I agree with the general statement of I think it's generally a good idea to disclose before sex. I don't know if I would agree it's rape by deception. I mean, it would depend on what you mean the deception is there. Because, what's the standard for that? At what standard is not disclosing something not rape by deception, right? Because people are out there having sex after having a night out partying all the time, not telling each other almost anything about their personal life. That could be a problem for the other person, but that's not usually considered rape by deception. So, I think there's a firmer line to walk here, and I kind of want to know exactly where that is.
You know what? I haven't actually looked at any cases that have been litigated on rape by deception. I just assume consent is something that you obviously have a conversation about what you're comfortable with.
Mm-hmm.
And if you avoid having a conversation about something that that the average person will enjoy someone to disclose, say for instance you have HIV and you're undetectable, then that is a deception, in my opinion, because you're avoiding something on purpose that would potentially change the outcome of you having consensual sex with somebody.
So I think if I said this to the last caller, and I think this holds true. If the caller, if the other person you're about to have sex with explicitly says, I would never want to have sex with a trans woman, no matter what their genitals were, that is something I would want, and then you didn't tell them, that would start to feel like deception to me. But I feel like, again, this road could fall down like an endless tumble hole, right? Because again, a lot of people would want to have kids in the future, right? They would not want to be with a partner who did not have the capacity to have kids. Is having sex with someone after a few dates and finding out you're really liking them and not telling them you can't have kids, is that rape by deception? That's something they would probably really want to know and wouldn't have had sex otherwise.
Interesting. So let's say you have a cis man that is HIV positive. I don't know. I feel like it's kind of just irresponsible to have sex without having conversations about what's majorly going on in your life. You know what I mean? It's kind of just
I would agree you're
irresponsible.
responsible. I
And
think
I
you're.
think that the standard should be to avoid all kinds of rape at all times. But
I agree that it would be
at the
irresponsible
same time, what
potentially.
you're saying sounds very valid to me.
So like I agree it's probably a good idea to disclose. It could be considered irresponsible to not disclose, but I I don't think that rises to the level of rape. I think that is like a very specific thing that has to do with consent. And if the person saw your body and said, "Yes, I want to have sex with you," and then found out you were trans and that was a deal breaker after, I don't think that counts as rape in the same way that your inability to get pregnant being a deal breaker or any other number of deal breakers. Like I can't be
I don't
responsible.
know.
I
feel
can't be
like if a
responsible for
woman,
every
this might sound really
contingency.
shallow.
I can't be responsible for every
This
contingent
might,
thing that somebody might have a problem with, hypothetically, right? It's better for you to disclose your deal breakers than to expect me to know your deal breakers and disclose them all.
well, yeah, it is good for you to disclose your deal breakers. But I don't know. I feel like, let's say, for instance, no, I don't want to. It's like most people would assume that most people would assume that if you're having sex with someone without a condom, that you were never diagnosed with an STD. And having sex without a condom doesn't guarantee that a person with an STD is going to give somebody an STD, right? But I don't know. I feel like for some strange reason, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either. That's why I'm asking questions. I don't think, like, again, if they explicitly say this is a problem for me, if you lie to me, that would be a problem. At that point, you are actively deceiving, right? Because they have explicitly laid out their standard and you ignored it.
'Cause you're
But
aware.
if you're not assuming, like I generally in my experience, most people don't have these degree of problems. I see that there are studies where men will report to a researcher that they don't want to have sex with a trans woman. But I'm just gonna tell you, my experience is that men will fuck just about anything that breathes. So I don't know. Again, if you explicitly make your preferences and your values known, that's a completely different conversation. But I'm not going to be responsible for every contingent thing that you might have a problem with. Like, I feel like that's completely getting like the burden of responsibility backwards. But I agree. If you're having sex with someone,
Well, wait.
you should
But I think we both agree that disclosure before sex is probably just responsible, right? Like I'm thinking
I already
about right
agreed
now.
to
I'm not even thinking about trans people. I'm literally just thinking about people with STDs that are undetectable because of the medication they take, right?
Well, I think having a disease that could transfer to another person is very different than having sex with a trans person, right? Like,
well, there are people who have a disease that cannot be transferred to another person. You see what I'm saying?
I do, but it still, I think it's slightly different, right?
But no, so I'm saying you personally, it's been 3 dates. Are you more attracted to men or women?
I am evenly bisexual.
Okay, well, I'm a person and you find me attractive. I have HIV, but I take all my medication and I'm completely undetectable. You will not get a sexually transmitted disease from me. We go on a few dates and I have sex with you and I'm trying something new. Normally I disclose before I have sex. Today I chose not to disclose with you. Are you 100% comfortable with that?
I mean, if it's non-transferable HIV, then I don't. I mean, I would have wished you would have told me, but I wouldn't consider that rape. Like, I would have been like, man, I really wish I had known that, but I'm like glad I know now, and I would not consider that rape though.
What's your definition of rape?
God, I don't have a definition on hand. Sex that is not consensual.
Can consent be withdrawn at any point?
Absolutely. 100%.
So let's say you have what seemed like consensual sex with someone who had undetectable HIV, but let's say her name is Brenda, and Brenda now knows that I personally have HIV, but I'm undetectable and I did not hurt her, so I didn't break any laws technically, right? But
I find out now that she would have never had sex with me had she known this about me prior. Was that sex completely consensual?
Yeah, I think the sex you had was consensual. Whether or not you regret it after is an entirely different matter as far as I'm concerned.
Okay, yeah, I can agree with that.
Cool. Awesome.
Okay. You have a good one.
Cool. You too. See you later. Well, chat. I can't hang up the phone, so I hope she hung up. Okay, I'm not hearing from her, so I'm gonna assume she hung up. That was interesting. Yeah, being compared to a transmissible disease is interesting. But I mean, I guess I get it. We were talking about non-transmissible HIV, which is the thing. But yeah, it's so weird to me to the expectation that trans women and trans people in general have to be like, I mean, that caller said it at the beginning. Like, it just feels like super socially unaware to expect that somebody's going to divulge everything, but on like the first date before you even actually have like anything going there where there's like trust or communication happening. Because like, I don't know, that just in my experience, first dates are usually extremely surface level, extremely casual, usually focused on things that are fun and not getting into like personal details or trauma. I even think there's an argument for considering divulging all that information right off the bat, like floodlighting, like overwhelming somebody with trauma dumping when you don't really know them, right? And I think that would also be equally inappropriate. So, but whether or not you have regrets after or like you have problems is completely separate from whether or not consent was violated in that situation. Yes, I see you chat and Jovan's chat saying I'm like herpes. Yep, it's a little wild, you know? It happens. So well, now I have control over you guys. So fun. No, not bloodlighting, flood with an F, like for Frank. Floodlighting, it's kind of like a pseudo pop psych term that just talks about like if you kind of dump all of your trauma on someone right away before you really know them. Kind of like if you turn a floodlight on someone, they're gonna like look away and cringe. Like that's kind of what happens, right? It's like overwhelming. If it can harm, it should be disclosed. If it's guaranteed harmless, then whoever cares. Yeah, I mean, like, again, there's lots of things that are like technically harmless.
That was crazy to listen to in my ears, by the way.
I'm
But
sure.
we're getting another call, so I'll leave it to you again.
Okay.
Hello, you here to debate?
Hey, actually, unfortunately not. I just wanted to say I've had a really rough week and I needed this. So thank you all very much. And I
No
love you both.
problem.
And I hope you have a wonderful day.
You too. Hello, are you here to debate?
Yeah.
All right, what's your name, major pronouns?
My name's Connor. I'm 30, and my pronouns are he, him.
Okay, Connor, which topic are you here to debate about?
I know you guys hate it, but I'd be happy to talk about the sports one a little bit more.
Okay.
I will suffer through for you, Connor. All right, give it to us. What's going on?
Okay. Yeah, I guess my issue doesn't necessarily come from like the how do I say it, like the educations or things like that, or like Fallon Fox or any of those cases. I look at it more on like a distribution on like what is the kind of average strength between men and women, and then what's the like 99th percentile where you would expect lots of differentiation to occur. So it would be like, how does going through male puberty affect your athletic outcomes versus not going through male puberty? So I think, at least for me, if a person who's transitioning from male to female, because that's usually where the conversation is, doesn't go through the male puberty, then I don't think there's an issue there. But I think once that does occur, then you're getting all of the benefits that testosterone would give you. And I usually, the analogy that I use for this is usually one to do with like steroids. So like if I'm competing naturally, there's a big difference between me competing and then somebody being on steroids. Even if they're at the same average test level as me, they accrue all the benefits of like recovery and having a consistent test level and things like that. And I just wonder, on your guys' perspective from that standpoint of it's not necessarily that those people transitioning are going to be better than the women they're competing against, but they would have accrued benefits that they wouldn't have had otherwise. And I think that's where part of my issue comes from.
So the research on this is extremely scant, unfortunately, and I don't think that we can just assume that what things are potentially gained in male puberty for most people are going to necessarily apply to all trans women, which is part of why my core objection is to blanket bans rather than like some sort of standardized criteria that is applied to all women evenly. But secondly, I think of the limited evidence we have, some of it suggests that there are like some advantages that are retained in some specific domains of sport. Other parts of it seem to suggest that there might even be a disadvantage, like your height and like the breadth of your shoulders and your lungs under the new hormone profile might actually be less functional towards an athletic goal. So my problem is that I just don't really think there's a good body of evidence to support either conclusion on this matter. But go ahead, Jovan.
I just don't think a genetic advantage kind of matters, because if, let's say, we had a cis woman who was just predisposed to be much better at pick a sport, pick any sport.
Yeah. I think there's the runner who was disqualified because she had gonads. I think her test level was close to like 250, and where like the average woman I think is 70 to 100.
So do we disqualify her because she has a genetic advantage?
Well, I think they did, which is like where this comes in. And I guess my ideal case would be obviously not a blanket ban. There's sports like ultra marathons and even fencing, to my understanding, where men and women compete pretty consistently, at least to higher levels. And so I'd rather see it sport to sport, and I think you're going to get differentiation depending on what sport it is. But I guess my argument would be more that, like, yeah, we don't have enough body of evidence, but we do have pretty good evidence on like what happens to the body when people take steroids, and I think that's at least a close enough analogy for what we're looking at, because the differentiation in testosterone between men and women is basically tenfold.
I'm not sure that it actually applies though, because again, like when we're having standards, like the standards that trans women have to meet for testosterone in our blood is also like lower than what most cis women are dealing with, right? So it's like, I don't know that there is actually like a meaningful advantage conveyed. Say again?
Or sorry, sorry, not the IPCC, the IOC, the Olympic Committee. I thought it was 250 nanogram per deciliter, which is
it might be
like
now,
80-year-old, but that's still 5 times above the female average. But I agree with you. Like I think if it was reduced to 70, I think we'd see even greater reductions in athletic performance.
So I'm seeing IOC initially had guidelines that required us to have below 10 nanomoles per deciliter for 12 months.
Convert it. I know nanogram per deciliter off the top of my head. You have to convert nanomole into nanogram.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I don't know what the conversion rate on that is then, but I don't know. I can
look it up here.
Purely from like a sorry.
I'm never.
I mean, like it's just like my anecdotal experience. Obviously, this isn't like stats, right? But like pre-transition, my whole like early adulthood, I could jump up on like a pull-up bar and bang out like 15 pull-ups, no problem. I could do push-ups, no problem.
Bang out is crazy.
Watching me try to do push-ups or pull-ups right now is the funniest shit ever, because not like at all, like again, bodies are diverse. I'm not trying to say like estrogen makes you weak. I'm saying in my case, I have noticed a significant difference in my ability to do anything athletic through HRT. But I don't know.
That's totally fair.
Like I can guarantee you almost any cis woman could run circles around me on almost any athletic competition. So if you're not advocating for blanket bans, then I don't know if I really have objections to what you're advocating for. I think as long as bans are being, placed, like, I mean, obviously there is a problem when it starts to like be functionally the same as a trans woman ban, right? Like I think you have to actually do some work to make sure these bans are like equitable. But if that work is being done, like I don't know.
Let's just be so honest here. They tried to ban trans women from competing in women's chess. It's not about
that's
biological
fucking insane.
advantages.
There was
They just don't like
also
trans
in
women.
Texas they made that the trans man in high school wrestle against women, and she was on steroids effectively. I don't know if you guys remember that case, but
I think I saw the story.
But yeah, 10 nanomole per liter is 288 nanogram per deciliter, which is kind of like a 80-year-old man, but women are at 50. So that's kind of that's probably my biggest issue with like the IOC recommendations, and some of the recommendations I think they're probably too high, but they're basically at the top end of like a case like I think her name was Caster something, the runner.
Caster
That was
Semenya.
basically her level, but she was massively about 5 times over the typical female average. So
Yeah, I just think it's interesting that when men have genetic abnormalities, be they hormonal or like physiological, that give them some sort of advantage in a sport, that's not considered disqualifying. But when trans women or even cis women like Caster Semenya have high testosterone, that's considered a disqualifying factor. Like you're no longer allowed to compete with women because you're too unwomanly, because you're too good. But you know, when Michael Phelps has freakish like blood and wingspan, and they're like, that's amazing, what a feat of biology that he has this collection of conditions that allows him to be so good. I have a little bit of an issue with that. I think I don't know, I would like to see a future where maybe sports are valuing the things that men and women are good at a little bit more equally. But dude, I'm not a sports person, so I really I genuinely hate this part of this conversation.
Yeah, I'm into like natural bodybuilding and stuff, so that like the steroid aspect is like really important, obviously.
I think bodybuilding's interesting because there was a trans person who almost qualified at the 2020 Tokyo Olympics who was trans for weightlifting, for heavy lifting, and she didn't even qualify. She came in like 11th place out of, well, it was a lot of people, but it was like top 10 qualified and she didn't make it.
Yeah. So yeah, and that's where I go back to like the distributions. Like, where were they on the distribution of kind of male athletes at that level, and then how far did they fall? I think there's the athlete from New Zealand where when she was competing with men, she was kind of like a middle of the road athlete, and then when she was competing with women, she won the Pan American or the Pan Asian Games. I can't remember her name. She's like 120 kilo or so power lifter, and I remember
Might be the
she
same person.
came third in a competition after she blew out her elbow. I don't remember her.
Yeah, I think it is the same person because I think she was the one I'm thinking of was from New Zealand as well. But I mean, obviously that's not universal because she then got her ass kicked at the Olympics. So not even got her ass kicked. She did well, but she just didn't do well enough.
Yeah, but it's she went from kind of like an average, even slightly below average male competitor to still in the upper echelons of female athletics.
I have a hard time finding that compelling when there are cis women who are beating her. Like if there was an epidemic where trans women were constantly dominating the top all the time, I could see an argument for it, but that's not really what we're seeing, right? We're seeing that she, I guess, did a little better in some competitions, but not all of them. So it's like, I don't know what to tell you, man. That sounds like somebody who's like, and I also, I have a problem with this notion that when trans women win, it's evidence of us being so awesome, but when we lose, it's not evidence of, that we're not dominating. Like, it should go both ways, but it doesn't. It's the one edge case, all the edge cases where we win, that's a problem, and that's evidence of us taking over. But the more likely outcome, which is the thousands and thousands of times that trans people lose, nobody talks about that. So I just, I take a little bit of issue there.
I agree. I think the problem with viewing it that way is that we're not necessarily viewing the like there's so few trans people that It's unlikely that they're in those kind of like 5th to 1st percentiles of athletes that are then transitioning. And so we're not necessarily seeing those cases where you would see like a massive spike where you would expect to see one. But I think also from the perspective of it being so rare anyway, and obviously nobody's doing it to like win at some sport, because that would be insane. Yeah, I can sympathize a little bit with the understanding, because having lots of tests on your body is clearly advantageous, and there's clearly some sort of advantage that you would get over someone who didn't have that aspect. So, like, at least personally, I think that if you've ever taken steroids, you shouldn't be able to compete in natural competitions, because you gained an advantage from being able to train more, recover faster, all of these things, all of these other X factors. Even if you don't have the same muscle mass on your frame, you would still benefit from all those extra factors, more reps in the gym, more training, etc., things like that.
I guess if you're consistently applying that you don't want anyone who's ever taken any kind of steroid to be allowed to compete against people who haven't. I have a harder time objecting to that. At least you're like logically consistent in how you're applying that. I don't know how realistic that is, because I'm not in sports and I don't know how often steroids are or are not being used in sports.
It's not. They get like a month or couple month ban. I think Aaron Ekblad in the NHL got popped for performance enhancing drugs and got 20 games suspension. So like it isn't taken as seriously as it should be. So I think that probably defeats my argument to some degree of how we actually deal with these.
Yeah, I just think, well, I appreciate that this is what the conversation is, and so this is what you called in to talk about. This is what people are talking about. I understand that. I'm not like faulting you at all. I just think that I find it a little silly, again, that we spend all this time talking about trans women and women's sports when it's like, is this really the most pressing issue in women's sports? I'm willing to bet that there are like easily 10 issues that we could come up with right here in the next minute that are far more important to women's sports.
Yeah, I would say that there's probably far more issue with women taking steroids or performance enhancing drugs in those to make it unfair than there are trans women making it unfair.
True.
I would bet a large sum of money on that being the case. So
cool. I think we're largely in agreement then.
That's kind of just, yeah, okay. That's all I wanted to talk about. Hopefully that at least puts some of the thing to rest. But I think it's just kind of the last hill for people to die on, because it's a lot easier to go on those things, but because of the differentiation between male athleticism and female athleticism, at least strength related, running seems to be much closer. All like cardiovascular sports are much closer.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it seems to be like the last bastion that people who are transphobes can glean onto. Yeah,
I get what you mean.
I think that's why Bernard both said the trans sports argument is really the only one that tends to have adequate pushback, in my opinion, because it's the only one where, like, I get it. Well, I don't get it. Like, what if, like, when Jesse Owens started competing and white people were like, well, he shouldn't be able to compete. He's too good.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, well.
Yeah.
No, exactly. I made that comparison earlier, and I realized I feel like I probably should be more careful about readily making the comparisons to race or something, but it feels apt when it's like, thank you. It just feels apt when it's like, there was a time where, like, exactly, having people of color compete against white people was considered a problem, and we just told them to get over it. And now when trans people are competing, we're like, oh, maybe they have a point. And it's like, or maybe you just need to get over it. Like, that could be the answer too, But that's not compelling to people, I realize. So I try to meet people where they're at on like the science and information on this. It's just the conversation that makes me want to eat light bulbs the most. So
yeah, I get that, and it would be so hard. I mean, part of it is so hard because there's so few trans people, and then trans high level athletes are an even smaller subset of that. So
yeah.
Okay, well, that's all I have.
All right.
Right on. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye.
Everyone is
I
so
think
pleasant
I got time
today.
for like one more call, but here's what we're gonna do. I'm gonna be very strict. If you call in and it is not to specifically debate one of these four, I'm going to say, thanks for talking. See you later. Okay? Me and Arden have been here for almost 3 hours, and I feel like we've gotten... Oh, wait, I can count them because I label them. 2 debates. Like 2 actual debates.
We're looking for clips here, people.
Again, first come, first serve. This is why I need to do this is why I need the call-in studio, but it's so much fucking money.
Yeah.
I can't use it for every day I'm live. That would kill me. I would kill my... Toast ain't bad. Thank you for the 5 gifted subs. I would turn the puppy cam on, but the puppy's not in here anymore. He's out playing. Okay.
I'm so sad. You usually get such interesting callers, but they're not here today.
They're there. They're just not the ones getting through. All right, here we go. Line is open. First come, first serve. I like how my suggestions on Google Voice is the person I labeled racist caller and another I labeled owes me $500. Hello, are you here to debate?
Yes.
Okay, you need to turn off the stream in your background.
Yeah, no, I realize.
All right, what's your name, age, and pronouns?
Do I have to give my name? Also, I'm 21 and biological male.
Just first of all, make up a fake name if you want. Like, it's not that hard.
John.
Great, John. And what are your pronouns?
What? He, him.
Great, thank you. Okay, John, what did you want to talk about?
I disagree with 1, 2, 3, and 4.
Okay, take your pick.
Well, maybe less for 4 because that wasn't, let's say, that wasn't present when I initially joined the stream. But I don't know. I don't think we should be teaching, let's say, sex ed to people that are in kindergarten or let's say adolescents at an age where they haven't necessarily started puberty. But we can get back to that.
Well, I would just say that you don't know what sexual health education is.
What? Okay, so what? Can we go back to, let's say, trans women or women, and then we can get to comprehensive sexual education? Because I just don't think it's necessary in the development of, let's say, an adolescent that's just starting, let's say, their education.
You can pick whichever one you want.
Trans women aren't women.
Okay, based on what?
No, you're saying trans women are women. I'm disagreeing.
Yep.
Can you substantiate the claim that trans women are women, or can I hear your thoughts on that, which I could then refute, and then I can present my own thoughts?
Yeah, trans women fit into the sociological category of women that we've set up. And there's nothing barring them from the category of women, so why wouldn't I allow them into the category?
Okay, but would you agree with the statement that trans women aren't female?
Would I agree? Yeah, I would say trans women typically are not genotypically female.
Okay. But again, your basis for making that statement that trans women are women are because they fit in that sociological category, correct?
Woman would be a sociological category based around culture and society, like different cultures and societies. And I believe trans women would fit into this. Yeah.
But don't you think that your definition of a woman is somewhat subjective, as opposed to, let's say, what the general objective definition of a woman is, which would be an adult female? But again, I'm not necessarily here to debate you on definitions. As long as you're acknowledging that a woman isn't a biological female, then we don't necessarily have a disagreement because you're not delusional.
There's no such thing as an objective definition. Definitions by nature are descriptive and subjective. But yeah, I would say like my definition of a woman is the definition I would use as a woman is pretty like concrete in that it covers everybody who is cisgender and transgender woman, and does not cover everybody who is a cisgender and transgender man. So it's a definition that meets the requirements of utility that I find definitions need.
Right, and then trans kids deserve gender affirming care. Why do they deserve gender affirming care? And also, let's say, like, what would you determine?
Do you agree with number 1 then? Do you concede to that one?
I mean, I agree with your definition. Like, I agree with your ability to, again, have a subjective definition or have, let's say, a belief. But I mean, as long as you're acknowledging the fact that there's a difference between, let's say, a woman and a biological female or a female, then yeah. But again, I still think you're disagreeing with, let's say, the objective definition of what a woman is.
There's no
thing
such
Which
thing
I
as
know
objective
there's
definitions.
no objective definition, but
Yeah, so I don't know what to agree with if objective definitions don't exist. I would say that the definition of woman being adult human female can still exist. I would just put an and or after it and give another stipulation to what I think can be a woman. So women can be adult human females, and or they can be adult humans whose gender identity align with their schema on the female sex.
right.
So you agree trans
Okay.
women are women
I'll agree with the
based.
claim that trans women could be classified as women based on, let's say, again, sociological factors.
Well, yeah,
So again, I can't disagree with the main claim. It was more so just asking for clarification in reference to your
Yes,
own belief.
nobody is saying that trans women are identical to cis women.
W.
Okay.
Jovan and Art. Oh, okay.
Oh, sorry, Bob.
Wait, could I ask her if she determines herself or she acknowledges her whether or not, or not whether or not, but the fact that she's a biological male?
Yeah, I don't really. So I feel like the claim on biological male is a little bit complicated because to be male or to be female is not one thing. I would agree that almost certainly, I've never seen my chromosomes, they're almost certainly XY,
Oh,
right?
based on intersex or?
Wait, say again? I didn't really hear that.
I said based on intersex.
No, not based on intersex. Because biological sex is not really like a single thing. It is a collection of oh, Jovan CV in the background just came to life on its own. Biological sex is like a cluster of characteristics usually that is a variation of different things. So I'm not particularly comfortable.
Phenotypic and phenotypic.
Yeah,
So,
that's
like,
fine to me from like a
female,
genotypic perspective.
female, yeah.
Sure, almost certainly biological male, but I personally, like, I wouldn't ever be comfortable calling myself female personally, but I also don't think people are completely in the wrong for it because I think there are situations where it is more accurate to think of yourself as a biological female. Like there are certain medical settings when you've transitioned where being female is more accurate than being male, even if neither fits cleanly. But yeah, from a genotypic perspective, I think it's fine to acknowledge that I'm probably biologically male. But I don't know, I've never seen my genotype, so.
Right. Okay. And then in reference to trans kids deserving gender affirming care, what would you determine as a trans kid? Just an adolescent with, let's say, the belief that not that they want to be transsexual, but that they are the wrong gender or would
Any
prefer to
person under
transition.
the age of 18 whose gender identity does not align with their sex observed at birth.
Okay. So okay. Would they be able to consent as, let's say, an adult would be able to consent to, let's say, any
So kids don't consent to any medical procedures. Their parents consent on their behalf with the collaboration with their medical provider.
Yeah, when it comes to kids
Right.
in medicine, we say that they assent. Assent it's assent, right? There's
I think
consent and then
so.
there's
Yeah.
and so kids typically assent and then adults would consent.
Right. Oh. Wait,
Yeah, I
so
would say
don't
that
you think that gender affirming care, them giving or being given gender affirming care as adolescents doesn't affect, let's say, their ability to how can I say this? Their hormonal maturity. So let's say they're transitioned or given gender affirming care prior to them, let's say, starting puberty. Don't you think that's an issue to an extent? And then also, let's say, given
they wouldn't be given gender
how,
affirming
let's say,
care
an
prior to-
adolescent like forms beliefs,
Yeah, just
or
real
let's
quick,
say like
just real
their own
quick.
thinking patterns, and that being, let's say, predicated on their parenting.
Yeah, I just want to just really, they wouldn't be giving any medical affirming care prior to hitting puberty because
You have to hit Tanner stage
medical
2.
affirming care. Yeah, it's just literally there is no medical care that's given before puberty. It just wouldn't make sense why we would give like things that alter puberty to you before you begin puberty. So like Arden said,
Right.
Tanner stage 2 is typically when you start medical gender affirming care. They can have social affirming care whenever the fuck they want.
Right.
But don't you think that's also like somewhat harmful to them, or could be harmful to them? Or could you acknowledge that it could be harmful to them, given, let's say, the fluidity of their beliefs and what's causal to that?
I think the entire reason that we do social care before they start puberty is specifically because it's not harmful and because it gives them the opportunity to, if they realize that that doesn't fit for them, that they can make that decision to change and there's literally nothing has happened.
But also, why do we keep labeling it as a belief?
Labeling what?
Well, you keep mentioning that it will change their beliefs. I don't understand what you mean when you say stuff like that.
I was just saying, let's say given that age, how could I say this? Impressionable they are. That's why I was saying, like, their structure of beliefs to their own ability to, let's say, discern what is objective and what's subjective.
Well, all identity would be inherently subjective, right?
I would agree with that.
So, like, I think it's okay to say that, like, some trans kids might have a hard time labeling themselves. In fact, wasn't there a study that said, like, most people who are LGBTQ don't stick with the first thing that they identify as, like, that tends to evolve. But I would say that just comes from lack of education.
Mm-hmm.
If we were very upfront about how we teach people when it comes to LGBTQIA plus topics, like point 3, then you would have less people that get it wrong. Or I won't say get it wrong, less people whose feelings evolve because they're given all the information up front.
Right. But again, just because of the fluidity of gender doesn't necessarily mean it needs to be taught to adolescents to that extent.
Sure, everything would be taught age appropriately.
Right. Well, what would you consider that to be age appropriate? Or what age would you consider it to be appropriate to, let's say, have those conversations?
About, like, different genders? Probably as soon as they understand the concept of gender, like around 3 or 4.
I mean, I don't think, let's say, an adolescent that's just developed consciousness to that extent should be, again, given an idea that they could choose between genders without necessarily. Well, I mean, you could potentially.
Trans education wouldn't tell you that you can choose your gender, right?
But go on.
You're saying, oh, I don't think we should teach them that they can choose their gender, but that's not what trans advocacy is doing. Like, is gender subjective? Like how you understand it and how you communicate it, absolutely. But that's not meaning like it's an active choice, right? Like, I didn't have a choice that I was trans. I actively tried for most of my life before I transitioned to not be trans. I tried really hard and I could not do it because I just am, right? So it's not like we're teaching them that it's a choice. You can choose. We're just teaching them, hey, these people exist. So if, like, when I was a kid, I was still trans. I still had all these feelings. If I had gotten that education as a kid, I could have been like, oh, maybe that's what I am. And then start exploring it and talk to like a medical professional or my parents or somebody in the school about it. But then start like deciding what am I going to do about it, if anything.
Yeah, but I also think that that's just a conceptualization of your identity over time and not necessarily you being, let's say, transgender or having those feelings from a young age. It's just the fact that those feelings or those beliefs were affirmed. You made a conscious choice to transition. You made a conscious choice to become transsexual.
Sure, if you have a cold, you make a choice to take medicine or to do something about it. But whether or not you have a cold is an objective fact.
Right.
Let me ask you a question. Do you think gay kids are making a choice to be gay?
There's a difference between, again, a virus and, again, acknowledging that people that are transsexual exist.
I would argue that I don't know why you keep using the term transsexual, but I would argue that, like, being
forgive
a man
me if
is
that does happen
definitely
to
a
be
virus.
offensive. It's just as a means of me referring to them.
Can I just add, let me just ask a clarifying question. Do you believe that people choose their gender?
Yes.
Okay. When did you choose to be cisgender, or when did you choose to be a man?
Well, when did I choose to be male? I mean, to be honest, like from my perspective, forgive me for what I stated earlier, in that, let's say, like I had a choice to choose my gender, right? I think, again, your gender is determined by your sex, right? And I know you disagree with that, but so forgive me for, again, saying something that's conflating. I didn't choose to be male because I am male. And I know there's a difference. Well, there's not necessarily a difference.
So then, why do you think trans people choose?
Well, I mean, I'm going to say something controversial, but I think to an extent that trans people are delusional regardless.
Okay, what does
What is
delusional
that?
mean?
Wait, a set of beliefs that's contradictory to objective reality.
Okay, well, trans people don't have that.
I could pull up an actual definition of it if you want me to be more specific. But
Sure, I'm just saying if that's your definition, that's not what trans people don't have that. Trans people wouldn't be delusional under your definition of delusional.
Well, here's what I would argue. Given she's still acknowledging her biology, she's not delusional necessarily. And what
Correct.
she's
And no trans
her
person thinks they're
beliefs are-
cis. So no trans person's delusional.
Huh?
I said correct. And no trans person thinks they're cisgender. We know we're trans. That's why we're trans. So problem solved. No trans people are delusional.
Okay. But to an extent, do you not realize how you're still denying your own biology?
How am I
Just based on
how am I denying my biology? We literally already had this conversation.
Well, again, you're not denying it necessarily. You're not verbally denying it because you still acknowledge that you're a biological male, but yet you transitioned and have taken what I imagine you've you've taken a oh my god, I don't know why I can't think of it.
How is taking hormone therapy or getting surgery denying my biology?
Transitioning surgery, correct?
How is taking surgery or getting hormones denying my biology?
Because you're doing something as a means of, let's say, quote unquote, correcting your biology. Because
Okay,
you
so
feel something.
if a cisgender man takes protein powder so that he can like bulk up at the gym, is he denying biology? Because his natural state
No.
isn't bulk.
So when Elon Musk got his hair plugs, was he denying biology because his natural state was to be a bald loser?
I mean, you could phrase it as him, let's say, denying biology, but there's a difference between somebody, let's say, like ignoring their biological state or what they are versus, let's say, I want to do something to alter myself.
It's literally altering yourself to get hair plugs.
Delusional describes someone holding a fixed false belief that conflicts with reality despite evidence to the contrary.
And as we've already sorted, that doesn't apply to any trans person. So I don't know why we're going back to that.
Can I ask you a question? Can I ask you a question, John? Just so that I'm understanding of certain, base level information. Could you just give me a base level definition of sex and then a base level definition of gender? So I know what I want your definitions of these two words are.
Right. Sex is a biological trait, and gender is what can be used to. Well, gender, like they're both okay. I wouldn't necessarily refer to as sex as a construct, even though to an extent it's a construct. I would say gender is more of a social construct.
Yeah, but you're not really telling me what it is. You're saying like categorically it's a social construct, sure, but what is that social construct? What is
Okay. Sex is determined by biological characteristics, right? Or that would be my definition of it. And I would say gender is more of a social construct that encompasses what cultural and behavioral aspects of men and women.
Okay, I think that's an okay definition of gender. I would say your sex one doesn't tell me much, but how I would define sex is it is the biological characteristics of species that can reproduce, specifically like reproductive biological characteristics. But if this is the case and you have those two definitions, then like there should be no question about trans women being women because your definition of gender has nothing to do with sex or biology.
Right.
So it shouldn't even be something you need to question.
I just think you're ignoring what the accepted definition of a woman is.
Well, because definitions are descriptive, not prescriptive. So I don't really care what like the dictionary says a definition is. Cool. The dictionary can say whatever it wants. Dictionaries don't imply correctness to definitions. They just tell us, hey, at this given point in time, it's like a snapshot. It says at this given point in time, this is how people typically use the word. That's why definitions change like
language is
literally every
interpretive
year.
to an extent.
Yeah. So like the dictionary is also only going to give you a limited definition. It can't get like definitions are going to be like, hold on. If I pull up the dictionary definition of a chair, right? So like, let me just look up chair. It is the definition
I'm
of
actually
chair.
curious what the definition of a chair is.
Beautiful. A separate seat for one person, typically with a back and 4 legs.
A
Right.
horse is a chair.
That's not
Confirmed.
Yeah, that's not like a super detailed definitions, because dictionaries can't be. If dictionaries were to give us like super detailed definitions, that book would be fucking thousands of pages long. And it's trying to
Right.
get like every word in a given language. So like we literally can't, like, that's why I say when I use my definition of woman, I'm very specific to acknowledge that this definition is crafted while looking at neurology, sociology, psychology, and I'm putting all of that together to come up with a definition that I feel is all encompassing while not being exclusionary.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, I agree with your definition, and you, let's say, like, how could I say this? Substantiating it based on, let's say, psychology. Are you stating that, like, let's say somebody is a biological male that transitioned into not a female, but into a transsexual woman? And forgive me if that happens to be, let's say, like derogatory or offensive in any way. I don't necessarily mean to be, but are you stating that, let's say let's say if they had a brain scan or a CT scan, that their brain would be more, it would be more similar to a woman's brain or a female's brain, as opposed to being, let's say, a male's brain, which again, they are biologically determined to be?
There is the evidence, and let me know if you agree with this, Arden, but the evidence behind the brain scan things is very loose on both sides,
Yeah,
in my
very
opinion.
loose.
What we have seen, like specific studies that I've read, like back to front, have shown that there are some similarities in gender when it comes to reaction to stimuli. So when men react to stimuli, certain parts of their brain light up, and that has shown to be different from when women respond to stimuli. And in that relation, we've seen that, for instance, a trans woman's reaction to that stimuli is going to light up a part of the brain that's more similar to a cisgender woman than it is a cisgender man. So like there is that, but I just like, I don't really believe you need
You're
to
still
have
not basing your definition on that. Your definition is supposed to be encompassing and, again, objective.
Yeah, my definition is based around schemas, because I think that's really going to be where we see how any human makes any determination about anything, really. So that's why I keep it like locked into that.
Yeah, no, but a social schema is like, it's a structure that organizes knowledge about like social situations or expectations.
Mm-hmm. So like when I say that like being a woman is based on if your gender identity aligns with your schema on the female sex, I just mean, does your gender identity, whatever your body thinks about, and gender identity I define as your subjective perception of your sex, if that aligns with what your brain has unconsciously decided females are, you're a woman. If it doesn't, you're a man. Like for me, I just know that I'm a man, right? My brain just knows that I'm a man. Arden's brain just knows that she's a woman. Michael Jackson's brain just knew that he was Thriller Night. And so like when we look at all these things, like they're like human brains are crazy things. And identity is such an inherent thing to us individually. Right? So I don't see how we can have or let me rephrase this. We can have an objective definition on what a woman is, but what a woman is has to be subjective.
I thought you said we couldn't have objective definitions.
When I say objective, I just mean we can have we could theoretically have.
I'm just fucking with you. I understand what you're implying.
Yeah, we could theoretically have one definition for this word and say that in all human time, forever and ever, this is the definition. But what it means to be a woman just has to be subjective. But yes, we do have to move on. Somebody did pay to move on to the next guest, so we do have to move on, friend.
Fine.
Thanks for being the serious, sincere debater. That's okay.
Yeah,
you can watch it back.
I got time for one more.
That's funny.
I got time for one more. What? I felt like I wasn't here for half that debate, but I know I didn't leave the room.
Yeah.
Did I just dissociate for like 10 minutes?
if we had stayed on, I would have wanted to get into the whole like transsexual as offensive thing, because it's like, it's really not a big deal. Like I don't really care if you use transsexual versus trans, but it definitely has some very bad connotations, like historically, towards like trans medicalism and gatekeeping and things. That's why I just prefer to use trans, because I feel like it's not the trans asterisk, it's not transgender, it just gets it all.
I don't remember if it was Naomi who used this. Oh, Dawn, thank you so much for the gifted subs, friend, who said that they use transsexual to specifically mean any person who has induced specific intersex conditions through gender affirming care. I know I'm pretty sure it was Naomi who I heard use that before. But yeah, I agree. The term is pretty much out of date at this point.
And I mean, I think there's a case for it too, and this is kind of what we didn't get to touch on, that, you know, certain elements of transition do modify your sex. You know, if you're not saying that sex is like some single characteristic, and that it is in fact a cluster of characteristics that includes chromosomes and genitals and stuff, besides chromosomes, all of the rest of it are modifiable to be in line with the female sex. So there is a case for it, but I just personally...
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I personally feel like the burden of proof to say that you are female is something that's like almost impossible to meet. So I prefer not to make that claim. I think it's easier just to appeal to sex characteristics can change. But anyway, sorry. Go ahead.
Yep. Well, and also, hold on, I got to update the live goal. And also, damn, we're so close to hitting the live goal, guys. $25 more and we'll hit the goal for today. I very much like to distinguish sex into two categories. I like to distinguish genotypic and phenotypic sex, because I feel like it just solves all the issues. When someone's like, well, are you male? Well, you might be genotypically male, but you're probably not phenotypically male. Right? Like, I don't think anybody's going to look at Arden and go, that's a phenotypic male. That would just be fucking crazy.
It's kind of funny. I mean, yeah, I go to the doctor's office and they ask if I'm pregnant. So, my experience, the assumption is usually that I'm not a phenotypic male.
Name it Giovanna.
Giovanna. You're so right. I would have a daughter.
Let's open the call in line, see if we can get like one more caller. We're going to go until like 4 p.m. probably.
Okay.
That's 4 hours of stream, which is totally fine. Flying Leech, thank you for the Venmo, friend. Thank you. Thank you, bud. I can't show the dog. The dog is gone. The dog is playing. Hello, are you here to debate?
Yes.
All right. What's your name, age, and pronouns?
My name is Michael. I'm 26. He, him.
Michael. Did I forget how to spell Michael? No, I think I spelled it right. You said 22?
26.
26, he, him. Okay, Michael, which topic on the board did you disagree with?
Kids transitioning.
Okay. What's the issue with kids transitioning?
So, in my personal opinion, I've been in your Twitch chat for a while now.
Real quick, but you're breaking up a bit. It sounds like the wind is hitting your mic, so just be aware of that.
Oh, I'm sorry. I apologize about that.
No problem.
You're good.
I just think that kids under the age of 16 shouldn't be able to transition, but I think ages 16 to 18 or 16 and above should be able to, with parents' permission.
Okay, Arden, you want to start this one? I feel like I talked a bunch last time.
Yeah, no, that's all right. I'm kind of curious why you think that. Why is 16 the cutoff? Why, you know, a lot of the evidence seems to suggest that people under 16, people at 10 or stage 2 of puberty, whether that's at 9 for that individual or at 12 for that individual, benefit from some sort of medical intervention. Why do you disagree with that medical consensus?
So why I believe that is because I believe at an age below 16 that you're just not mentally ready. Like at 17, I was able to join the military, and I had to join with my parents' consent. I was 16, just about to turn 17 when I joined the military. But I had to get my parents' consent. I think it should be the same. I I think hormone blockers should be allowed before that age, just not the surgery.
Oh, so to be clear, the Journal of American Medical Association released a report on like the rate at which surgical intervention is being given. I think they found one case between 13 and 15 of somebody who got surgery, but no one below that age. So this is like really substandard. It's very, very niche cases, and they're almost always people who have some sort of condition on top of everything that warrants an accelerated timeline. So like that is super, very much outside the realm of the standards of care to be giving surgical intervention to anyone under 16, even under 18. And even then, you usually are going to need letters from a therapist and a doctor to sign off that you have met whatever necessary conditions they've determined you need in order to access this care, and the consent of your parents. So like these things are almost not happening at all, except under extraordinary conditions where they're warranted.
Oh, okay. I must just be uneducated in that. I apologize.
No problem. I mean, it sounds like you're honestly on our side. If you think, because like most puberty blockers aren't going to be given past 16 because that person's already in puberty. You probably should just move on to hormones at that point. But yeah, I mean, it's around 12 is usually when people start hormone blockers. It's based on the stage of puberty you're in. And the average age is like around 12 or 13, but it can be younger for some people or older for others. The standards of care are to, when you hit that stage, get hormone blockers for a period of no longer than 2 years, because after that, there starts to be some negative side effects on like bone density. And then you move on to either cross-sex hormones, or you come off it entirely and you resume your endogenous puberty.
Okay. I apologize. I just thought that we had a differing opinion on that.
Nope.
And I wanted to debate with it, but we seem to have the same opinion.
Yeah, those are the medical standards of care. So sounds like you're online.
Okay, I apologize. You guys have a wonderful day.
You too.
All right. You too.
Well, that was nice. I like when people are like, oh, that's information I didn't have. I'll update my worldview. That never fucking happened. So thank you to that caller.
Did you see the video I posted a video the other day of somebody who literally, after talking to me for 15 minutes, apologized to trans people.
Oh, wow. I had not seen that.
He apologized. He was like, I feel like that's not enough. And like, I need to do more. And I was like, good on you, bro.
Honestly, that's great.
We still got time for more calls. I'm Arden, pick a number 1 through 3.
3.
Okay, that means we're taking more calls.
Hell yeah.
Fun fact, if you picked 1 or 2, we still would have taken more calls. Call-in line is open. First come, first serve.
Nice.
Guys, we're so close to hitting our live goal for today.
You and Jimmy have
Come
very
on,
similar
baby.
senses of humor. That's something he totally would have done.
I can't wait to hang out with you guys more, doing
yeah.
stuff.
I
Like
can't
I
wait
said,
to see.
I'll keep the next time we do, I'll keep my call in line with you guys' number, and you're gonna get.
Yeah, no, that'd be interesting.
Hello, are you here to debate?
Yeah. Hi, I'm a fan, but I'm gonna debate you on one.
Well, do you agree with one?
No, I disagree.
You're a fan of mine, but you disagree with number 1.
Yeah, so earlier a guest was okay, people in the chat told me to call in. So there's some people who use self ID and they're not like real trans.
There's some people that you okay, can I just get your name, age, and pronouns first?
Yeah, my name is Ray. I'm she, her, trans.
Ray, she, her, trans.
That
Okay,
wasn't
what
an
was your
age. Yeah.
Oh, I'm 28.
Okay, 28. And you think there are some people that use self-ID that aren't actually trans?
To be clear,
Yeah,
everyone
firstly,
uses
in
self-ID.
prison, there's some news articles of people trying to get like parole, and I feel like we shouldn't count them. But also, I was talking in the Twitch chat. Oh, this is giving me anxiety. Basically, so I had this friend, like I have like trans friends and stuff, and like this was like a dude with like a full beard and whatever, and then he's like identifying as she, her. He's like trying to befriend us all and stuff. And I
You know,
don't
there
know.
are
It just
people who
it
don't
didn't
have
feel,
the money to get like laser hair removal and shit, right?
yeah, but you have like an 8-inch beard. It's like I don't
Is this
really
a
take it
bit? Is this a
seriously.
bit, or is
Yeah,
this
I'm
for
not
real?
sure if this is real. This feels a little fake.
This
Who-
is
who ca-
not a bit.
Wait, so wait. Who? So what? Like, can women not have beards?
Well, they can have beards, but it's like
Okay.
Not if you're trans, though.
doing like
So then, yeah, what would be the difference from like a trans woman with a beard and a cis woman with a beard?
well, there's a huge difference if like
What's the
like you
difference?
have to put some effort in.
What's the symmetry breaker?
According to
cis
whom?
woman doesn't, wait, if a cis woman doesn't have to put effort in, what is a trans woman?
It just feels disingenuous.
Why? You're not giving a why. You just keep saying it doesn't feel right, but you won't elaborate.
Okay, like when you're talking about like schema and gender identity, doesn't it have to fall to like some kind of binary?
No.
No.
It would just fall to that person's understanding of what a female is and or what a woman is, whichever way you want to take it.
Yeah, but then subjectivity just becomes like it doesn't have like it has some like erroneous ground. It's like
What
not
though?
backed by like
You keep being vague. Elaborate. What's the erroneous ground?
okay, like if you say you're a woman right now, it's like it feels kind of erroneous. But if you say it because you have like queer friends, I don't know.
I just asked you why does it feel erroneous, and you just repeated it feels erroneous. Why?
Well, because we have like binary standards of like how we understand stuff.
Where? Like what specifically?
I don't know.
Because
Like
I would argue that we don't have binaries when it comes to what a man or a woman is. Because if we did, then none of us would say the bearded lady was a lady. We would say the bearded lady was a man because they don't fit the binary. But we don't call her the bearded man. We call her the bearded lady, right? There's a whole movie about this. This is me.
yeah.
So I'm
Do
just
you have like I don't know. It's just like I had this issue with this one person in my life, and like it just feels like conflicting to me as like an actual trans person.
It
Not
sounds like you don't know if they're actually trans, though. It sounds like you have some internalized like transphobia and self-hate about your own insecurity about how valid you are, and like you're projecting that onto other people. You you're trans by self-ID too. Every single person's gender is determined by self-ID.
But also, why would you allow a interaction with one person change your entire worldview on something?
No, it doesn't. It just seems there's people like that.
There's people that pretend
They're
to be trans.
very
Sure.
rare.
There's white people that pretend to be black. That doesn't mean that I now look at all black people differently and now make a weirder category for black people, right? I don't change.
No,
I don't change what makes you black just because Rachel Dolezal shows up. But you do.
Sorry.
Because
No,
some people might
feel like
pretend, you
there's-
now go like, well, we can't use self-ID, even though there's quite literally no other way to determine someone's identity except by them identifying themselves.
No, I didn't say we can't not use self-ID.
You started the call. You started the call by
it-
saying some people use self-ID and I don't think they're really trans. That was how you started the call, just to remind you. So I'm guessing you don't mean that and you're going to change that statement.
Sure.
Cool. Then trans women with beards are valid and self-ID is valid. Glad you agree.
I don't fully agree. I think there's some people who are just like using it. And like
How do you prove that? How do you prove what's really in someone's head? Because I don't have access to the content of someone's mind. So generally speaking, when they're declaring their gender, I just have to take their word for it. Of course they could be lying. Like somebody could be lying about being gay when they say they're gay. But it seems like a really stupid thing to lie about. And there's no consequences to me accepting it. So I don't understand the problem.
Well, the problem is that there's like insane people.
Why is that trans people's fault?
It's not.
But you're making it our fault. Because you're saying that, oh, some of us are not real because
No,
there's
I'm not.
insane people. Yes, you are.
I'm making it that specific.
You literally
person.
said a trans person you met with a beard was like a bad look or wasn't really trans or you didn't buy it or whatever.
It's like a dude who plays basketball. It's like I don't take it seriously.
Why should anyone care what you take seriously?
Huh? I don't even understand that one.
No, he's not. The gender identity was like just completely like a social phenomenon for this
Okay,
person.
how do you know that you're trans?
Well, I don't know. I can't really explain it.
So it's just like an innate feeling that you have in like inside?
I mean, I just wanted hormones, like.
How did you know
And
you
then,
wanted
like,
hormones?
Well, because testosterone ruined my body, but I feel like if I didn't have any of that, and I was like a dude with a beard, I don't know if I'd be aligning with like.
This is so weird.
Aligning with what? You've already agreed with me that women can have beards. So what would be the issue?
This person is 28. Okay, I'm getting roasted. Have a good day.
I mean, okay.
The person with a beard isn't the reason you're losing rights, Ray. You're listening, I'm sure, because you said you were in the chat. I know you hung up. The person with a beard is not the reason you're losing rights. It's the conservatives. It's the far right. You have more in common with the most hulking, bearded, hairy trans woman than you ever will with the people you're trying to appeal to. So grow up, let go of your own baggage, and learn to accept that you don't get to determine what makes other people valid.
Also, like, if you come in like a marshmallow, you're gonna get roasted. I don't know what to say. Like, like
I'm
bro,
stealing
like,
that. I have to write that down.
like, what the fuck? Yo, shout out to Kodo Ono for sending me some fan art. Let's see if I can show it on screen at all. Hey, that's pretty sick.
Hey,
Thank you,
that's
friend.
so good.
Thank you. Always love getting fan art. I'm gonna share that on Instagram. That was just such a weird call. Transmedicalism makes no fucking sense.
She didn't even have like a good base. Like, I don't know. Usually trans medicalists try a little harder to make an argument, but she didn't really think about it. She just called in like without going over it in her head once first, apparently.
Let me just answer some super chats. Balthazar said transmedicalist bullshit incoming. You were right. Crafty said, thank you both for this excellent discussion. Have either of you read Terry Pratchett's Monstrous Regiment? It speaks volumes about gender identity, women and trans people in the military, toxic religion, free press, etc. No, but I'm gonna copy that now.
Yeah, that sounds interesting.
And I'm also gonna say, if you haven't read A Brief History of Trans Misogyny, everyone should read that book because it kind of speaks into what like half the callers have said today. So one more time, opening up the call-in line. This will probably be our last call of the day, everybody. Last call of the day until me and Arden decide to co-stream again, which might be sooner rather than later.
Hell yeah, this is fun.
Call-in lines are open. Unless we ran through all the conservatives. It's totally fine if you guys ran through.
I mean, I feel like we got like multiple people to confess on. Oh, shut up, Art.
Hello, are you here to debate?
Yeah, how's it going?
Chilling. Can I just get your name, age, and pronouns?
Yeah, just call me Drew. I'm not worried about the other stuff. Don't.
Well, I'm worried about the other stuff, so can I get your age and pronouns, please? Also, you're really quiet. Are you like on speaker or something? We can't really hear you.
Oh, sorry. Is that better?
Doesn't feel like anything changed.
Okay, let me try one more thing. Hold on. Is that any better?
Yep.
Way better.
Okay, sorry about that. I had a headset in.
No problem, Drew. I just need your age and pronouns,
30.
please.
Yeah, I'm getting 30 and he, him.
All right,
cool.
No problem. All right, which topic did you disagree with on the board?
Okay, so
I guess I'm more confused. I don't know that I disagree. I think I do, but I just wanted clarification first, if that's all right.
Okay.
So it would be the first one, the point one. So I'm curious, I guess, like where my confusion comes in is like, I guess I think of it as like categories and subcategories, and not in like a lesser than. That's not what I mean by subcategories. So I don't want to, you know, I don't want somebody to misconstrue what I'm saying.
Okay.
But like, what's the importance of defining trans women as women instead of just trans women? And I don't mean just in a derogatory way either, but you get what I'm saying, I think.
Yeah, actually, this is a really good question. I feel like I haven't gotten to talk on that in a long time. And I think primarily it's because women and like the importance of it to me is that women and trans women share some very specific types of oppression. And I feel like being able to talk about that is really important. Like for the fact that I'm assumed to be a cis woman when I'm going about my daily life. And so I experience misogyny like all the time when I'm out, right? Like if I am trying to, I breed animals, right? So like if I'm trying to haul animal bedding into the truck, like men will come out and be like, I've got this, sweetheart. Like I can't lift a 40-pound bag, but I'm like a grown adult. Of course I can lift a 40-pound bag. Or like, you know, opening the door for me in like a way that's cumbersome to the entire conversation, right? So like I think it's really important. There's also like medical settings where this applies, and like general, like if I were like, for example, also in like a domestic abuse situation and I were to go looking for like a shelter or something, like I wouldn't be looking for a men's shelter. That would be probably more harmful to me, right? And most people don't know my biological sex, so it would have literally no effect on the other women there. So having access to those kinds of spaces is also really important to be protected from misogyny.
Okay, I get those points. I guess more of what I was thinking is like, isn't it more, placating isn't the right word, but I think you'll get what I'm trying to say. Like, wouldn't trying to change the terminology or adjust words or whatever it is, whether it's man, woman, or whatever the word is, right? Wouldn't trying to change that instead of changing like, or trying to adjust how people think of like trans, we'll just use trans women because it's what's on the board, but like as opposed to like a trans woman having like a negative connotation and being like we should just call them women, wouldn't it be better if it was just accepted that it was like women can be women and trans women can be trans women and that's okay?
I want to just clarify something really quickly. We're not saying trans women are not trans, right? What we're saying is being trans is just another category of woman. So trans in the way that we use it is just saying that like, yeah, trans in the way we use it is just an adjective. So it's just saying this is a woman who is trans. Just like if I said cis, it would be a woman who is cis. Just like if I said tall, it'd be a woman who is tall.
Okay, so you're not saying there's like it needs the term trans woman even needs to be obsolete or not used?
No, we would use it anytime we're comparing or contrasting trans woman to cis woman.
I think maybe a distinction here. I know some people will like use trans woman as like a compound word separate from woman. And I think maybe if that's what you're getting into, I don't like that. I'd rather have it be trans as an adjective, like trans space woman. Trans is an adjective modifying woman. But I don't have a problem with acknowledging the fact that I'm trans. That's not the issue.
Okay. That I guess that was more of my question because, and not speaking to you or your life experience or anything, but just in my experience, I've had that happen a couple times where it was like, it was automatically on a wrong foot because I like unintentionally used a term that I wasn't aware was like incorrect or wrong or whatever word you want to use, right? And it was like, okay, now I'm in the negative and I have to work my way back just to have a conversation with somebody because I said trans woman instead of woman, and it was like I'm no less than, and I didn't mean it that way. You see what I'm saying?
I think there are some people who are going to. So there's two things here. I think if this is like an online conversation, you're using the compound word. There could be a situation where someone's immediately going to assume that you're like a gender critical, like very hardline anti-trans person. Even if you're not, that's just how that word often gets used. And so I can understand why someone would mistakenly assume that of you if you did that. On the other hand, if it wasn't that situation, it was like a verbal conversation. There are situations where I think emphasizing the trans part can kind of feel like you are trying to create a bit of a hierarchy. And I think, trans people are rightfully going to be a little bit sensitive to being told that we are less than on the hierarchy of like the value of human life. And so
No, like
yeah,
humans are humans across the board. There shouldn't be a hierarchy. I think it's more of like language should be used for clarification, you know? And so it's like if there's categories and subcategories, it shouldn't, like, I agree, it shouldn't be like this means less than or more than or whatever. Like, I was listening to the stream a little bit earlier, and there was the yes, one of you asked the question about like brunettes, blondes, and redheads, or not the question, but the comparison, right?
Mm.
And it was like, I see what you were trying to say, and I'm not advocating for it to be like, oh, like, to use that analogy, like redheads should be less than, but like you still need the distinction of like, well, there are redheads, right?
I guess it depends on what you need the distinction for, because like, right, like in most contexts where I'm out in public, pointing out that I'm trans isn't really relevant. Like I also with their animals, like we'll go to expos to like sell our snakes or something, right? And in that situation, there's no relevance to me being trans. To all those people, I'm just a woman. But when I'm talking at the American Atheist Convention about transphobia in the secular movement, I do emphasize that I'm trans because that's relevant to the conversation. Like I am coming to you as a trans woman.
Imagine you were trying to just point out a woman in a crowd and there was no other women near her, and you just said, yeah, it's that black one over there. That'd be a little weird, right? When you can just say it's that woman. But let's say Arden is in a group of like, let's say there's 100 women and there's 20 trans women and 30 cisgender women. Well, then I can say, oh yeah, well, some of them are trans, some of them are cis, right? Because we're just pointing out that there's a difference between these groups. Usually we're really only going to use that distinction in like medical settings, in scientific settings. We're not going to really use it mostly in social settings because there's just no reason to, unless you're specifically talking about your identity and how that identity, like I'm going to talk about the fact that I'm black if I'm specifically speaking on black issues. But if I'm speaking on like issues that affect all men, I'm going to just say I'm a man.
Right, and I guess that's kind of what I was just making sure there was like a clarification on those different distinctions, right? So like race is a good, not a good comparison, but a good comparison for this conversation, right? In that like I wouldn't say like, oh, I'm a white dude just randomly, right? Like for any non-distinctive purposes. But if it was like, oh, I'm like for whatever I'm being surveyed or whatever, and you have to fill it out, it's like, okay, well I have no problem saying that I'm like a white guy, right?
Yeah.
But so that was just my point of clarification, was like, I don't understand what the problem is with saying trans woman, but if that's not what it is, it's not like, well, we're trying to replace it, then I guess I'm not really
I think
here
a
to
big
debate on that
issue
point.
is that a lot of transphobes, TERFs, the like, try to say, they literally say the phrase, well, they're not women, they're trans women. They're trying, and what this is trying to say is they can't be real women because they're trans, which I think we all disagree with, right? Like I said, we just use it as an adjective to just describe the type of woman we're talking about.
Yep.
Right. So it's not that it's like a distinct negative. It's just that like acknowledging that there is differences in certain categories is not what the issue is.
Yeah, no. I mean, by definition, calling yourself a trans woman is acknowledging that, right?
Sorry, go ahead.
I was just saying, by definition, calling yourself a trans woman is acknowledging those differences, right? Like, by calling myself trans, I'm modifying the word woman.
Right.
But yeah.
Okay. Cool. Yeah. Okay. So I think I'm kind of on the same page with that now. I just, it also, like, I think my biggest, like, contention with it would be that it's very, in my experience, because, like, so I am, like, a cisgender white guy, right? And not that that matters in any way whatsoever to me in these conversations, but it's almost like, it's hard to have these conversations because, like I said earlier, you're kind of on the back foot just by like even questioning. Like, I really appreciate you guys being chill about this and opening a phone line, and like I can call, whether or not we disagree, you're like having a conversation, right? But it's like it's super hard to get understanding on these things because at least in my personal experience, is like sometimes I feel like I have to tiptoe and not even get to stuff because I'm so worried about tripping up on these things. So I guess this next part of what I had to say is like more of a question. Like, how would someone who is not in any of those categories approach having these conversations in a non-negative way?
Well, I think there's a lot of
I don't
context.
know exactly how you are right now, but yeah, go ahead, Arden.
Yeah, no, that's kind of what I'm getting at too. I think the context really matters, like when people ask me these questions in real life or on like social media, I just tell them to call in because I specifically carve out this time to have these conversations, to meet people where they're at and not assume that they're going to understand everything or that they're going to get every term right. I don't want to have these conversations in my day to day. I'm not going to spend my time in a reply war on Threads or Twitter, debating my womanhood. That's such a waste of time. So like, I think it's really learning the context you're in, because most people who are just like hanging out at the bar who happen to be trans aren't going to be like, oh yes, let's debate my validity. That sounds like a great way to spend my night. Like, so like, just consider the space you're in.
Not at all. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's super fair. I just I don't know. Like I said, I kind of had a debate point, but it was more questions, I guess. And
Yeah,
then I'm
no, that's
not
fine.
well versed enough in any of the other areas to like debate you guys on that. But
I appreciate you asking questions.
I'm more of coming from a learning.
No problem. Well, thanks for calling in, and you have a great rest of your day.
Hey, thank you guys.
Thank you.
All right, let's just real quick. Let me say the final super chats. Someone said, what was the name of the book Jovan recommended? I pulled it up on the screen. It's A Short History of Trans Misogyny. We actually read this for a book club. I might bring the book club back. The book club was a good idea, but only 3 people ever engaged in it, and it was me, K-Space, and Reader. Thank you for talking with me, being knowledgeable, informing me, and not judging my take on transitioning kids. I don't judge. I just match energies.
Same.
Oops. Thank you guys for watching. Everybody say thank you to Arden for being here today and for giving their informative information on the takes. All the Arden videos that we got that are decent will be posted to my YouTube in the coming days, so be ready for that. Arden, do you want to just plug any upcoming streams you have and anything?
Yeah, I don't really have plans, but I've commented a few times in the chat, so you guys can see me. I'm sure. I'm at the Arden Heart on everything, Twitch and YouTube, and I'm tiptoeing. Oh my god, I'm dipping my toe in doing some solo stuff because I've been with Align for like 4 years on YouTube there, but haven't done my own stuff, so I'm just getting at it now. If you want to follow, that'd be cool. I'd appreciate it.
All right, everybody. YouTube, saying goodbye to you first. You guys have a beautiful rest of your day. Don't you stop being adorable, you beautiful bastards. And Twitch, you also have a beautiful rest of your day. Love you guys. Mean it. Bye-bye.
I guess I should probably stop streaming too. Love you guys. Thanks so much.